WTIC.
Hey, shh. Calm down. The show is about to start. Reese on the radio. Turn it up. Turn it up loud. Turn it up loud.
It's like a dream come true.
Turn on your radio. Reese is on the radio.
Yo, let's get it.
Due to the nature of this program, discretion does not exist. It's Reese on the radio. Right now on WTIC News Talk 1080.
Let's go. How we doing out there? Scallywags, nutmeggers, all across the fruited plain. It is I, your friendly neighborhood, Reese on the radio, on WTIC News Talk 1080. Woo! We are ready to go. And raring to go on this Tuesday. I always love the beginning of the week. Once we get around Wednesday and Roland starts saying happy hump day, I go into a deep depression because I know the weekend's coming. Right, Roland is going up, I'm going down. I was coming up on Thursday. It'll all be over. We got to do it again on a weekend. Anyway, I got plenty of stuff to get into today. I think I'm going to lay off DQuat for a day. Just a day. We're not letting our foot off the gas. Let's just say we're idling on the DQuat story. I don't like to run stuff into the ground unless something new happens. And if I hear something from City Hall, Adam, I will let you know. He's always texting me during the show. And applaud those conservatives. The real ones. You know who you are. I appreciate them because they check out the show every weekday afternoon at 3 o'clock, and they've been huge supporters of Reese on the radio. So I love you for it. We'll find out whether or not they're getting any answers from Deep, getting any answers from the commissioner there, any other stuff coming from the Army Corps of Engineers. We'll get into all of that in due course as the information comes. We're going to see if we could get Chris Webby back on the show. I'm going to send him an email later on today. And so that we can talk about the smear campaign on him in the news media. I just read another article from some small-town gumshoe, right out of college reporter, a young lady who is an environmentalist, so-called, bashing Chris Webby. This young lady 2-3 years ago was in diapers. Now she's an adult talking about how Chris Webby is spreading mis and disinformation. I read her article. She sounded like an agent of the state. So we'll get into that. We'll talk to Chris Webby about that this week if we can have him on. Other stuff that we're getting into that we haven't let go of. Of course, as you know, yesterday we had on Reverend Jacob Dell to talk about what's happening with Project Veritas. He ended up on Project Veritas. They did a video about him yesterday as well. And thank you, Reverend Dell, for posting our conversation on your Facebook page to showcase your appearance here. So we're going to keep on that. That's not going to change. We will have some updates on Reese on Radio and Roseanne on the radio that you're going to love to hear. We'll wait until later on in the show to talk a little bit about that. And what else do I have to address? I know there was something that was sort of housekeeping, but I may have, I don't know, it wasn't all that important. But if it was, I promise you I would have bring it up. Maybe it'll come to my head later on, and I'll bring it up because I didn't really write it down. It was just something I said, hey, maybe you should mention that. Don't forget that the Reese on the Radio, that's what it was. Reese on the Radio, if you didn't find the show on the Odyssey app or on WTIC.com, There's just been a technical issue with getting that done. Normally, you can go there, but don't forget, you can always go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com. If you go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com, you can get it with limited commercial interruption. I know on the Odyssey app there is no commercial interruption, and good on them. But if you want to, go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com if you missed yesterday's show. Today, that also will be the case, so go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com roughly around 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock. You'll be able to listen to the show if you miss it today. So that was the other thing that I had to mention. In today's opening monologue, I'm going to talk about something I saw on the 5. Now, I know this show airs when the 5 is on, so I watch it usually immediately after the program. I like all the guys on there. Even that ne'er-do-well, Jessica Tarloff. My wife hates it when that young lady is on, but I love it when she's on. I love the back and forth between her and Jesse. They're like siblings with a rivalry against one another, talking about conservative versus liberal issues. They are fun to watch for that reason. So I watched that, and Dana Perino, also a young lady I'm a huge fan of from the Bush administration, talked about an Axios article that I hadn't heard about. I don't pick up Axios all that often. If somebody tells me a story or forwards a story, I'll check it out. But I don't look to Axios. But when Dana Perino talked about that article, I said, holy crap, I've got to get it. Why, you say? Well, it's easy. Because the Axios article codifies an opening monologue of yours truly. One that I gave on this very program almost 5 months ago. And what was I talking about? Maybe it was 4 months ago. But you will remember, those of you who are avid listeners of the Reese on the Radio program, you know that I did an whole opening monologue about it. In fact, I remember the first caller I got after I did that opening monologue was Simsbury Joe. So I know he'll remember this. Democrats told to get shot for the anti-Trump resistance. An article by Andrew Sullender. Let's read a couple of pull quotes. Democrat members of Congress are facing growing thrum of demands to break the rules, fight dirty, and not be afraid to get hurt. House Democrats told Axios that they're seeing a growing anger amongst their base that has in some cases morphed into a disregard for American institutions, political traditions, and even the rule of law. Another one told Axios that a sense of fear and despair and anger among voters puts us in a different position where we can't keep following norms of decorum. Do you remember when I said that? Do you remember when I said, what were the Democrats to do? What was the left to do after their ideology had been rejected? They had to resort to violence. I even went so far as to say, would they go so far as to pull a January 6th of their own? Back to Axios. We've got people who are desperately wanting us to do something. No matter what we say, they want more. Liberal voters have angrily accosted Democrats at town halls, in their view, not doing enough to counter President Trump's agenda. The grassroots wants more. They want them and have suggested what we really need to do is be willing to get shot when visiting ICE facilities or federal agencies. One-third House Democrat told Axios, constituents have told them civility isn't working and to prepare for violence, to fight to protect our democracy. Another Democrat told Axios that people have online sent him crazy-ish, told him to storm the White House and stuff like that. Though they added there's not always people on the internet saying crazy stuff. But they are. They're saying storm the White House, a la January 6th. I told you that when they were running out of ideas, when they were continuously rejected because they would not set aside their craziness, like what is a woman, like gender-affirming care, child mutilation, pornography in books, that if they didn't reject that, what were they going to do? They were going to go hardline, Klan-like. Use violence as a means to get their way. Become the fascists they claim to be fighting. Using violence for a political means. Many lawmakers said these voters tend to be, sit down, everybody sit down. Everybody sit. Everybody sit down. I need everybody sitting down for this because you're going to fall over. Sit down. This is big. This is Axios. Many lawmakers said these voters tend to be white, well-educated, and live in upscale suburban or urban neighborhoods. Yes, folks. Yes. Rich Whitey. Yes. Yes. This isn't the radicals from Black Lives Matter. These aren't the college-educated ne'er-do-wells. No. These are white, well-educated, upscale suburban whites. Like right here in the Nutmeg State. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. I couldn't be happier to know this information. They're the ones who are screaming the most about January 6th. January 6th! Flying the flag of January 6th! And now they're screaming, storm the White House. You've got to be willing to be shot. You've got to take a bullet. We need violence. White suburban voters? What? I know a lot of you right now just saying to yourself, no way, Reese. Yes way. Yes way. It's beautiful. It's beautiful to know. Who have you been seeing in and around the state at these protests against Elon Musk or Donald Trump or anything Republican or conservative? What have you seen? You know it. The left knows it. Right now, progressives and leftists who are listening to my voice right now, they're sitting there angry, holding on to their prune juice, shaking at the radio. Bastard! He's on to us. I was always on to you. I was always on to you. Axios is 5 months late. I told you this, folks, after the election. I told you that this was going to happen because they were going to become desperate. When people don't like your ideas, when the American people have rejected you, you either had to comply, you had to come up with a new strategy, or result to what is innate in you. And it is about hatred. It's always about hatred. You don't see it my way. You're petulant and angry. Young people, too. It's not just the old ones, the young people, too. But the young people, they're not like these affluent, well-to-do white folks in and around our country. No. I want you to think of the young people differently. Here is our good friend who we like to turn to, Harry Enton. On the 4th of July weekend, he did this study, this survey of young Generation Z folks who have no pride in America.
I'm looking into whether or not Americans feel proud to be an American. And as it turns out, Democrats, their percentage who say they're proud to be an American has fallen through the floor. What are we talking about? Take a look here. Democrats' pride to be an American, extremely or very proud. In 2015, look at this. 4 out of 5 Democrats were extremely or very proud to be an American. That number has plummeted to just 36% now in 2025. A low this century has fallen by more than half since 2015 as Donald Trump has become, of course, president once again this year. Now, what is driving that decline? Well, a lot of it has to do with age. What are we talking about? Well, Generation Z Democrats, proud to be an American or not. Of course, Generation Z, born since 1997. Look at this. Only 24% of Generation Z Democrats are extremely or very proud to be an American. That is actually lower, Erica. That is lower than the percentage who say they have little or no pride to be an American at 32%.
Now, the earlier part of this piece where you said the Democrats in 2015 were at 80% proud to be an American, why else would they not be proud? They got what they wanted. They got Barack Hussein Obama as the president of the United States. And at that time, there was no likelihood in their eyes that Donald Trump was ever going to win. No likelihood at all. Hillary Clinton is going to be the president of the United States, they thought. 80% for Democrats. But then again, when they don't get their way, that plummets, baby. Boy, does it plummet. When they don't get their way. Petulant children. But what Harry Enton said here about the Gen Zers, folks, I want you to look at that differently. You're going to say, it's probably the schools. You're part right. I had this discussion with the young one yesterday. The boy, he's about to turn 18 this month, and he considers himself a socialist, proud socialist. Yes, I know he's been away for too long. I haven't been able to influence him long enough, but I'm working on him. He'll get there. When you're young and ideological, you'll believe any nonsense these college professors and these school teachers will tell you. We'll give it time. But when I listen to him and I hear him talking, I realize what these Gen Zers are like. These Gen Zers, they're like the skinny girl that you take out to dinner and tells you that she's only going to have a salad or she only eats organic. And then when you're not looking, they're savagely scarfing down a steak. When no one's looking, they're heartily eating a ham sandwich with mayo. Not a vegetable to be found in their own daily lives. They pretend outside that they're pure as the driven snow and care about everything from the trees to the birds. But when you come home, you find out that their house is a mess. Nothing is clean and there's filth everywhere. That's what these people are. You see, they always talk about how they hate America. But when no one's looking, they simply gorge on America. Everything about it. From its laptops to its internet to its social media. Every facet of their lives is filled with millionaires and billionaires. While they scream at the rest of us talking about how they wish billionaires would spend more money on the poor. I don't pay any attention to them. When we come back, I'd like to play you the best, I would call it dissertation of all of this by our future president of the United States. Go nowhere. You don't want to miss this. It's a 3-minute audio piece that explains this Axios piece, what I said 5 months ago, and the future of the Democrat Party. Again, a speech given to us by our future president, Mr. J.D. Vance, when we return. It's Reese on the Radio on WTIC News Talk 1080. I want to give a shout out to Greg Dillon. I haven't talked about him in a while. How you doing out there, boss man? He said he liked the shirt and the T-shirt and hat combo, of course, brought to you by some folks who need to be sponsoring me. I'm not going to say, you know who they are, Grunt Style. I love their shirts. All their shirts are great. I wear them all the time. So anyway, before the break, I mentioned this audio for 3 minutes of our future president. And I'll get into that in a minute. If you want to call me and contest it, that's fine. I doubt it. But you better get used to it. Barring, health and harm, or health or harm, the next president of the United States is J.D. Vance. All roads go through him, unless he decides, nah, never mind. But I doubt it. I really, really doubt it. But this Axios article has inspired a lot of conservatives. They thought about it. They're thinking about it. It's on the minds of people. Because as Donald Trump continues to win a new judicial, win through policy, these things are starting to resonate in a negative way with the left, because they're starting to feel like, hey, if this guy's agenda works out for the American people, we've got no shot. And the most important thing we have is power. And what do we want? We want to be able to control people. And this guy's going to screw it all up. Globalism, man, that's a thing of the past. He's actually turning people off to the idea of a global people. He's got them thinking for themselves and doing their own research. It's impossible to get these people to conform. That's why they hate him. This guy's telling people that their free speech is God-given and not government. This guy's telling them that they have inalienable rights. He's actually got them reading the Constitution, which we know is a contract that forbids government to enslave its people. We can't have that. Now, I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek, but not entirely. A lot of people are sitting up there going, well, Reese, come on. Aren't you being a little over the top? Well, I would listen. I haven't been wrong yet. Your future president, J.D. Vance. Why did he give this speech? I don't know. But it was probably because people were wondering, how can Muslims and the LGBTQ community walk together? How can white, affluent people be screaming for an end to white privilege? We've asked those questions over and over again. Well, the future president, 48, has an answer.
Now, I may not speak for many of you, but I was once comforted by these contradictions within the modern left. How could privileged whites march around with a straight face decrying white privilege? How could progressives pretend to love conservative Muslims despite those Muslims' views on gender and sexuality? But the answer is obvious if you think about it. And it's a very, very dangerous and very sad answer. The radicals of the far left, they don't need a unifying ideology of what they're for, because they know very well what they're against. What unites Islamists, gender studies majors, socially liberal white urbanites, and big pharma lobbyists, it isn't the ideas of Thomas Jefferson or even of Karl Marx. It's hatred. They hate the people in this room. They hate the President of the United States. And most of all, they hate the people who voted for that President of the United States in the last election in November. This is the animating principle of the American far left. Now, to be clear, it isn't true of most of the people who vote for Democrats. Most of the people who vote for Democrats, they're good people struggling to get by, even if we think that they're misguided in their political judgment. But pay close attention to what the leadership of this movement says outside of the glossy campaign ads and outside of the general election tested messaging themes. And it's obvious what animates the leadership of the modern Democratic Party. The far left doesn't care that BLM, the Black Lives Matter movement, led to a spike in violent crime in urban black neighborhoods, and it did, because that same movement also led to anarchy in middle-class white neighborhoods. They do not care that Islamism hates gays and subjugates women because, for now, it's a useful tool of death against Americans. And they don't care that too many pharma companies are getting rich from experimental hormonal therapies because, in the process, they're destroying the so-called gender binary that has structured social relations between the sexes for the whole of Western civilization. And they certainly don't care that deporting low-wage immigrants will raise the wages of the native-born because they don't mean to create higher living standards for those who are born and raised here, whether they're black, white, or any other skin color. They mean to replace those people with people who will listen to their increasingly bizarre ethnic and religious appeals. They are arsonists, and they will make common cause with anyone willing to light the match. And that's why Mamdani himself is such an appealing instrument to the left. He captures so many of the movement's apparent contradictions in a single human being.
And that he does. That he does. But again, it is not about just Mamdani. It is about the left. You do have to ask yourself, and I know you have because you've asked me, how do these people square so many different ideologies that contradict each other? And again, as I've always stated here, there is one common cause, and that is hatred of you and your ideals, what you stand for. That's all it is. You know the old saying, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. They saw this happen, and it sucks because you can't really scream victimhood after you lock arms with someone who has an ideological bent that is meant to destroy you. Someone in that power structure has to seek power. It's just like the story I told you in what's that darn town? In Michigan. It's not Dearborn, but it's the other one. I was talking to Ben Wetmore of Project Veritas about it. He did a story about what was going on there. About the what do you call it? The corrupt voting in that town. They elected an entire city council of Muslims. They were all promoted by the LGBTQ community. And what happened as soon as all of the Muslims took over every seat in the city council? Get rid of that pride flag. That comes down now. They don't stand for it. And everyone's sitting around amazed. What? What do you mean no pride in our town? We helped you get elected. You know, you guys don't know this unless you've been to a rally or you've watched it on TV. Many of you who hate Donald Trump, you probably missed this. The people who know, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Does anybody remember the story that Donald Trump used to read at the end of every rally? Do you remember it? It's called The Snake. And you know that story of the snake. There are plenty of different iterations of it, but it's all familiar. I think there's one about a scorpion and a frog. They're all the same story. I don't want to go through the whole thing, but you remember what the parable is at the end, is that the scorpion has to be a scorpion at the end of the day. The snake has to be the snake at the end of the day. No matter what, you can nurse it to health. You can be there to give it its wings. You could be there to nourish it and care for it and tell them that you're on their side. But the snake has to be the snake. It is you who failed to recognize it. Thank you, Lori. An Aesop fable, yes. It always ends up being the same thing, and these people are always like completely flummoxed by it. What? The Muslims don't like the LGBTQ flag? I didn't know that. Didn't anyone tell you? Yes, but he was a conservative. He was a Trump voter. Well, the Trump voter turned out to be right. Yes, but he was only telling me because he's a bigot and a hater. But was he right? Well, it doesn't matter. He's a bigot and a hater. Well, your pride flag's gone. And the ideology is about to go too. But what are they willing to give up for their hatred? Maybe they should ask themselves. Because it looks like they've compromised everything for their hatred. They don't have a problem with their kids having porn in schools. They don't have a problem with their daughters being beaten by biological men in sports. They are willing to sacrifice everything, even their own livelihoods. Getting fired from jobs, being pushed out of polite society, even murdering their parents. Because of the big bad hatred of MAGA. They're willing to give up everything. So I ask, who's in a cult? Who are the cultists? Maybe we should rethink that. Just saying. We take a break. We'll be back. More news, more views, your phone calls, 860-522-WTIC. It's Reese on the radio. I forgot that we were going on. You said a minute, and I totally forgot that you said in a minute. So I wasn't exactly ready. I completely screwed that up. Okay, we're back. It's Reese on the radio, NewsTalk 1080, WTIC. I want to thank Dave Mager. I got your email. Thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to spend this moment to read what Dave Mager in the WTIC newsroom just sent me. His email was about a statement that was released by what I presume is Democrats. In fact, I'll read some of the names here on the email or on this letter that was released about DQAT. And I told you that as these things were changing, that I would respond. There's a lot of people who have signed on to this letter. I'll read some of them. Representative Renee LaMark Muir, Hector Arzino, Patrick Callahan, Brandon Chafee, Jane Garibay, Joseph Gresco, Ken Gucker, Maria Horn, Jonathan Jacobson, Amy Morin Bello, Tom O'Day, John Michael Parker, John Piscopo, I wonder if any relation, Kevin Ryan, MJ Shannon, Lori Sweet, and Kerry Wood, amongst others, who have signed onto this letter that I'm about to read to you. There has been false and misleading information on social media that has triggered fear among residents about the use of the herbicide DQAT to combat the river growth of hydrilla in the Connecticut River. It alleges federal and state agencies, scientists, and environmental advocates are intentionally harming rather than protecting the river and other waterways. That's a lie. No one said that you were intentionally harming the waterways. They said you were intentionally harming the people. So that's a lie. In the face of serious environmental threat from hydrilla, it is important that the facts about the problem and the evidence-based method to eradicate are accurate. The Connecticut River is our premier natural resource. As its stewards, we must preserve and protect the river, its ecosystems, waterfowl, and wildlife, and ensure the safety of residents who live along, recreate or work on the river. Hydrilla is a highly invasive and transmissible plant, and its threat to the Connecticut River's natural ecology is very real, including the degradation of river habitat, water quality, native plants, and animals, and the loss of waterway navigability and fishing, lowering of property values, and increase in flood risk. We all know this. If we do not act now, the ecosystems of the Connecticut River will be changed forever. Why didn't you think of that in 2016 when you knew it was a problem? By the way, any of you are invited to come on the show. Any of you co-sponsors of this letter. Any way of you can answer those questions. Understandably, the use of a chemical in our environment causes concern. If we do nothing, the hydrilla problem will worsen and other invasives will proliferate. More chemicals will then have to be used to combat invasive plants. No, they won't. There's no fact to that at all. We've done our research. Don't gaslight us. Dequat, a non-selective herbicide, when properly applied and in the right amount, is not considered hazardous. By whom? Who is it not considered hazardous by? There are plenty of places that we have researched, myself alone, that say otherwise. But yet, no reference here as to who has not considered it not to be hazardous. This product has passed comprehensive Federal Environmental Protection Agency risk assessments for registration of aquatic use. The State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, DEEP, permits all aquatic herbicide applications and certifies trained applicators to apply the product. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, in partnership with state and local organizations, is conducting an ongoing research program into the use of Dequat in new ways to combat the spread of hydrilla. Environmental advocates support this program to combat hydrilla to protect the Connecticut River, lakes, and waterways. So what? Who cares that they approve of it? What gives them the moral, if not ethical, if not scientific authority? Who's allowed to challenge that? Has anyone been able to challenge it? Or we are supposed to just agree because they say so? Is this another attempt to tell us the experts know better? Alternatives to Dequat currently include using mats to cover the plant beds and mechanical removal of hydrilla. These methods have proven to be ineffective and only worsen the problem. That's not true either. Listen to this part. The plant grows through and around the mats. Mechanical removal chops and fragments the plant, causing migration and proliferation as parts of the plant float downstream and proliferate elsewhere. Well, we have an expert that was on Friday that says that's not what they do. They do not fragment them. Again, someone is lying to you. But if any one of you so-called experts who want to sign on this letter ever want to be on this program, you are immediately invited. I will cancel all plans. I will cancel all programming for you to get from behind your desk, your office, and this ridiculous letter and come on here and make your point. Let's get some news. Dave Mager's in for John Silver at WTIC in the News Center.
Reese on the radio, making sense of the news. Yeah, even when it makes no sense at all. Now on WTIC, News Talk 1080.
Well, apparently somebody from that office is supposed to be willing to talk to us. So I'm going to send them an email in the middle of this and see whether or not that rings hollow. We're going to see. Well, we got another 3 hours worth to do of the show. We'll see if we can get somebody else on. It's not really short notice, but if you put out a statement today and you're available to talk about it, somebody should be able to get right on it. Okay? I also sent an email out to a couple of other people who might know some of these Democrats who might want to, who might be well versed on the subject. We'd love to have them on. So in case you're listening, one of your representatives, please don't hesitate. I'm sure you know the hotline number. It's available. Get on the line. So we'd love to talk to you because you think that it's safe. You say that it's safe, and you're giving me what I can only describe as shoddy evidence that it is. And when I mean shoddy, look, again, I get it if you're new to this. I get it. I understand that the way that people do things, there's business as usual, or, the routine and response that people are supposed to give, telling us that the experts say that it's safe. It's gone through extensive research. What research has it gone through? Well, we don't know. That's what they tell us. Don't sign a letter that says they've gone through extensive research that you haven't followed up on. That means that you are just taking people's word for it. Ask how many people have died from taking the coronavirus vaccine today versus when we weren't allowed to talk about it. Remember when we weren't allowed to say that it was affecting women's menstrual cycles? Do you remember that? And you told us, shut up, conspiracy theorists. What happened? What happened? Or as we like to say, what happened was? Turns out, quietly, the CDC changed it inside their own website in the middle of the night, thinking nobody would notice. But we all had our eyes on them, and we caught them doing it. They didn't even make a formal announcement and alert the public. They quietly, behind the backs of every American they told not to worry, when they found out that it was true, quietly changed it on their website. And now we know that it's been banned in other countries, which, by the way, you don't even mention in this letter. We know that it's responsible in Brazil for close to 500 deaths a year. You don't disclose that in here at all. You just tell everybody, take our word for it. It's mis and disinformation. That don't work no more. Just so you know. Those days of taking your word for it, no. And where were you when we were first asking about this? Where were you when we were talking about this over a week ago? Where were you when we had a petition put together by Chris Webby? Where were you? Where were you after the news report, after statements were put out by Republicans? Senator Stephen Harding. What happened after that? Nothing. We're a week in, and now all of a sudden you're going to release a letter? Now you're going to tell me that it's completely safe? After all of the research that we've done? We come out on the back end. You come out on the back end and tell us, no, everything's fine. And we're just supposed to take it? Think about it. And just think about it. And if you're out there and you're listening and you know these folks, I've got an idea. Stop smearing us. Stop dismissing us. Stop taking us for fools. With all due respect, we know you don't know what you're talking about. We know it. This letter proves you don't know what you're talking about. You're repeating the talking points that have been given to you. The fact that you had to address this as Democrats and not as citizens of the state, the fact that you would be dismissive of the people who are concerned, rightly or wrongly, you should not dismiss them. Give them the information. This isn't a political football. No one is suggesting that it is. Regardless of the way Chris Webby views it or anyone else, we are not talking about this. In fact, we've never once said Democrats want to kill us. Never once. We didn't make this political. We said, why is the Army Corps of Engineers allowed to come into the state and spray poison in the waters? Why? Why are they allowed to do it? You won't even let them come in and remove violent felons. You won't allow them to remove illegals in the country who are in sex trafficking, child trafficking, and drug trafficking. But people have questions about a toxin that's going to be put in the water. And the government's just allowed to come in and nobody can question it? And we get this from you? How can you expect anyone not to be angry about this? To be honest with you, I'm not even outraged. I'm not. I'm done. I'm done, because what is it that you aren't willing to do to smear people that you're here to represent? People are concerned about it. Everyone's talking about it. There's an alternative. You won't even consider it. There's a company out here. We're doing all the hard work. We're interviewing people. We're talking to individuals. We are having a dialogue. We talked to a company that sells the equipment that can get rid of the stuff. You haven't even engaged them. You haven't even told us. You haven't even shown us an ounce of faith to reach out to Jeffrey Cordisco and his company to find out what they can do. You won't return their phone call. You won't even allow them to give you a demonstration. You're not going to do it till next year. The Army Corps of Engineers sent out a letter that said they were going to do it after the 4th of July. After all of the outrage, all of a sudden, they're not doing it this year. Well, guess what? There are 5 months left in this year. In fact, it's a year before you're supposed to do it in 2026. Please tell me that isn't enough freaking time for you to call Cordisco and ask him to see what he can do, to find out if there's an eco-friendly way to fix this. It would cost you nothing, if not the confidence of your constituents, that you were finding every possible way to do this without harming future generations, drinking water, the environment, or animals, or anything else. Just explain to me the reasoning for smearing everybody else, putting pen to paper to write this ridiculous letter. You're just repeating the same nonsense that every other news station has already put out. Every other print newspaper has put out. You all sound like you're reading off the same prompter. All you have to do is tell people why. And you're not doing it. Why haven't you talked to Cordisco? Why haven't you talked to C&D? Why did you wait when you knew it was a problem in 2016? Why did you tell no one that you tried experiments back in 2014? You put this in the water. Why did you not tell anybody? Why did we have to force the Army Corps of Engineers to put out a statement to say that there was going to be a public response to it up until the 13th? Why did they wait? If you're wondering why there's so-called mis or disinformation out there, is because the American people, or Connecticut, the nutmakers, they're being forced to scramble to put a stop to this while you're keeping them in the dark. Democrats, it's Tuesday. We've been talking about this since last week. How do you arrive at this now? We were begging people to talk about this. Why isn't it on the news? Why isn't anybody ever talking about it? We literally had to fight for this. Mark in West Hartford had to call every TV station and say, are you going to cover it? And their response was, we know about it. Now, all of a sudden, there's this concern about mis and disinformation. You allowed that so-called misinformation to fester, to grow, because you wouldn't address it when we first asked. You all played a role in this when you dismissed people's concerns. You didn't think it was important enough to talk to anyone about it. Nobody in the media thought it was important enough to bring up. You had to be forced. And now you have the nerve to be indignant? We're not buying it. And you've made matters worse. You did, because this is not a partisan issue. This has nothing to do with Democrats versus Republicans. It doesn't have to be that way, but the hell if you didn't make it. It's about drinking water, man. And if I may borrow a line from Michael Jordan, man, Republicans drink water too. I just can't, man. I can't with you people. So busy being politicians, man. Just lost the whole focus of being people. Just being people, being neighbors. Man, if I had a bunch of people running around screaming that the sky's falling, I would at least consider talking to them about it instead of smearing them for thinking that the sky is falling. But that's just what you do. I pray you have a change of heart. I pray you think about this letter. I pray you consider the option of contacting companies like C&D, contacting Jeff Cordisco. I pray that you do. You got a year. You're not going to do any dequat in the rivers this year, right? You're going to push it back another year. Obviously, it's not so dire that you have to do it now. You can wait another year, right? Well, good. Use it as an opportunity to reflect. Try alternatives. See if these guys can get the job done. See how effective their method is. Then come back to us. At least then, it sounds like you care. At least then, it sounds like you've done everything. At least then, you sound like you've addressed their concerns. You did the job of the people who are supposed to represent us. Why should that be controversial? Why should that be partisan? We should have faith in you. And look, man, if anybody's out there who's upset about this or angry about this and said, Reese, they're just trying to do... No. This isn't trying to do anything. When you start off a letter by saying there has been false and misleading information on social media that has triggered fear amongst residents about the use of the herbicide dequat, and then they don't address the fact that it's been banned in places, that it's been banned in China, in the UK, you don't even put that in here. You don't even say, I know that it's been banned in the United Kingdom, but I promise you here in the United States, it's different, because you can't say it. And you're acting like this statement in some way erases the ability for other people to do the research, which, by the way, I've been kicking my behind, getting more and more research, reading stuff I've never read before, trying to understand the science behind the usage of this stuff. And tell me, my eyes are glazing over. I've never been more confused in my life. I've never had to study this stuff, but it's become so important. Because if nobody stops it, what happens at the end when, I don't know, kidney failure happens? Organ failure happens? Children are born deformed? Upticks in cancers and other ailments? What are you going to do then? My bad. Yeah, the science was different then. It was different. We didn't know. Get out of here. What's up, Tim? How are you?
Well, this morning I turned on a Brand X radio station, and they put out the same Soviet propaganda that, with almost word for word, what you just read there on their newscast, saying all this misinformation and falsehoods were being spread by people, and that everything was all hunky-dory and wonderful. And I'm like, okay, if you want to read a press release and everything from the state, that's fine. We've got to really start addressing these kinds of issues in a very serious and a deliberate way. I think the reason they're doing this, it's probably the cheapest method. I would have to look at, see, what's the way we can do this and everything. And when someone tells me that the government has approved something, I kind of like, what? Yeah, I'd have to the EPA approved something. You can still go into any big box store and pick up Roundup.
Yeah.
By the gallons and stuff all over. And that's been banned, all over the country, but it's still, still legal here. You can, like I say, just about any place. And that's going to go into your rivers and down, from the country club and everything else. So I certainly hope people start, once again, contacting their local state reps and state senators. By the way, you read that list of people. I study the politics up there. I haven't heard or very familiar with any of these people. We need to start, addressing the majority leaders.
Wait, Tim. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I apologize. And by the way, I owe you an apology too, and I'll get to that in a second. So wait a minute. So the names that I read on this email, in fact, I think I have the email sitting up in front of me right now. So the names that
backbencher.
I'm sorry.
The terms of it sound like a bunch of backbenchers.
Oh, so some people you've never heard of before. Okay.
I mean, I pay a lot of attention to politics and everything else, like I say. And if they want to,
I'll be honest with you, I haven't heard of these people either. Renee LaMark Muir of the 36th district. Hector Arzino is 151. That each number I'm reading is the district. Patrick Callahan of 108. Brandon Chaffee of 33. Jane Garibay of 60. Joseph Gresco of 121. So I mean, those some of the names that are on there. I don't think I remember any of these.
If your folks are listening and those people are your reps,
yeah,
they'll call up and say, hey, I've got a different point of view about this. Can we kind of hold off on this a little bit and consider all the alternatives, the long-term consequences of it. Just because somebody in government, whether it's deep or the governor or anybody else, says, hey, this is fine. And it is a vital waterway we've got up and down. But we also have, the Housatonic River. The state says only eat one fish a day from the Housatonic River because it's got so much PCBs.
Wow.
This is a major issue. So we've definitely got to start addressing people, the state, the majority leaders.
Yeah.
And all of these people have to be, known and everything, and the governor's office himself, because, who knows where, if he's wandering around aimlessly in Greenwich, not paying attention to people about this kind of issue.
Yeah.
And what kind of long-term consequences. We just don't want a bunch of, I heard the other day you were talking and someone mentioned that this stuff dies and just becomes a big mat on the bottom.
Yeah,
of the floor,
and it rises back up. Yeah,
it continues to affect the bottom feeding fish.
Yeah,
and everything else. So it's
exactly
like you solve
right.
one problem, and you
causes
create another
another
problem.
So Tim, let me do this because
appreciate
I got to go to a break, but I promised. As I said, I do owe you an apology. So I went back to go listen to our conversation about Zoran Mamdani. And remember, you were talking about the grocery stores. You began by saying one grocery store, but then you added immediately afterwards, and we were going back and forth. You said one in each district. You meant to use the term borough because that's what they're referred to as. Yeah, you meant to say borough, but you said district. But I understood what you meant. And I did listen back. So I apologize by saying you only said it was one, but you did correct yourself by saying it was in one in each borough.
Well, he is, by the way, he is absolutely the devil incarnate. I've never seen the Post and everybody else. He's so upset about, one guy. He's got to have a city council that's going to pass all that sort of stuff. And by the way, folks, you really want to get involved. We're out in the streets right now collecting signatures to get people, on the ballot for our local offices and stuff, including the most expensive one to live in, Hamden. The mayor just said, forget it. I'm not running for re-election.
Yeah, I just heard that.
Spoke today.
It's
like saying, I can't. It's a mess.
I got to go to a break, Tim. But thank you, and
Bye-bye.
I'm glad that you're with us on this DQuad issue. Much appreciated, man.
Thank you.
You got it. All right, Tim and Hamden. There you go. If I could ever get somebody on the opposite side of the aisle to agree with us, like I said, this is not a partisan issue. We'll take a break. We'll be back. More news, more views, and, of course, the news with Dave Mager when we return. It's Reese on the radio on NewsTalk 1080 WTIC.
Happy birthday to us. 100 years of serving Connecticut.
We're back. It's Reese on the radio, NewsTalk 1080 WTIC. I'm working on getting Representative Renee LaMuir on the program. Apparently, she's going to be she's doing something with the station in a little bit, in about a half an hour. So I think we're going to make that happen. She's one of the co-signers of this letter, and we're going to address this finally and get this settled with the leaders, if you will, politically, to get to the bottom of this and to get. Because, as I said, the most important thing is let's knock it off with the whole smearing people with misinformation and then offering nothing at the end. We're killing that. That's never gonna happen here. We need to get to the bottom line, and that's what we're gonna do. Because all that smearing people who have righteous concern, that's gonna be dealt with. And I'm reading an article right now of a study that was done on DQuad as early as May of this year. Anybody know about it? No. I bet you nobody knows about it. Anyway, let's get to some headlines. A professor the University of Chicago on Saturday admitted that she is using her platform at the school to, quote, build power, end quote, and to advocate for pro-Palestinian causes. Iman Abul Hadi, an assistant professor and director of the graduate studies at the University of Chicago, said at an annual socialism conference in Chicago on July 5th that she uses her platform as a professor to build a base to mobilize in support of Palestinian and build power for the movement. Also described the university as evil and said that it's a colonial landlord. And if you think that's bad, that's happening everywhere. Here is a young woman who goes by the name of Melanie Yazzie. She is a professor at the University of Minnesota. This is what she said at a conference on camera.
Of all liberation struggles and the movements that seek a world of justice, equality, and peace, that seek to dismantle the United States. I hope you seek to dismantle the United States. And if that isn't your politics, okay?
Isn't that your politics? Dismantling. It's such a joke, right?
I speak as if everybody has this commitment. And the thing is that you should listen to Indigenous people when they're telling you that this is the goal. And that not only is this the goal, but this is the starting point. Because I think Nick articulated this very clearly. Decolonization is the only thing that is going to save us.
Now, you hear that, right? I'm an Indigenous woman. Decolonization is the only answer. We need to dismantle the United States, right? This is what they're talking about, right? This is what they believe. These are in the universities. They are given platforms. They're teaching your young folks. You're spending $20,000 a year for this rubbish. That's what you're voting for. I mean, that's what you're paying for. That's what you're getting. They wish to destroy the country you built. You did. Through your blood, sweat, and tears. Through your tax dollars. Were you taking care of the poor? Having your money go to those savages? Anyways, those people who just take your money and then treat you like dirt afterwards, say that you don't deserve all of your hard work, and they're just here to dismantle everything. Just a bunch of ne'er-do-wells. Oh, but this gets better. This gets better. Remember, this was supposed to be about Indigenous people, but was it?
As a species, it's the only thing that's going to save us as a planet, and everyone should just be on board with it, no questions asked. And I say this sometimes on the podcast, our Red Nation podcast, I'm the co-host of Red Power Hour. You know, like, of the most oppressed ass people in Turtle Island, Indigenous women are like on the top of that fucking list, okay? And incarcerated at higher numbers, murdered at higher numbers, missing at higher numbers.
Than blacks?
Higher levels of rape and all kinds of sexual violence and sexual harassment. I mean, Indigenous women struggle so hard under the settler regime.
Now, again, if you're thinking that this is about Indigenous people and their hardships, you can get that impression. But it's all about something far more sinister. Go on, tell them, Melanie.
That is the United States, and the way that heteropatriarchy ties so closely into that. And if an indigenous woman is telling you that decolonization is the solution, and also that there is real hope and that Palestine offers us, we said this in the speech, Palestine is the alternative path for Native nations. And this is because we understand Palestine and the liberation of Palestine is the tip of the spear.
Yeah, it's all about free Palestine. You didn't see that coming? You didn't see that coming? I saw that coming. Yeah, that's them. Yep, absolutely. What are you supposed to do? R&B singer, or pop singer, I should say, Lily Allen of England, she casually laughed off the fact that she has undergone 4 or 5 abortions in a cringy July 1st episode of the Miss Me podcast. The famous singer launched into a discussion about unplanned pregnancy during her discussion with Makita Oliver. And Allen revealed that she used to get pregnant, quote, all of the time, end quote. Allen gestured to her lower body part and declared it a complete disaster area while laughing about the matter. Listeners quickly took to social media with some of them calling Lily Allen, quote, demonic. Yeah. Also, now, folks, if I didn't tell you this yesterday, you wouldn't know it to be true, but I told you this yesterday. The reverend boyfriend of the former Houston mayoral appointee who went on a tirade against Camp Mystic, you remember her? The young lady we talked about yesterday, Sadie Perkins?
I know I'm probably going to get canceled for this, but Camp Mystic is a whites-only girls' Christian camp.
You remember her. Well, her boyfriend, the reverend of that young lady, says that he has found her comments controversial. Colin Bosson, a senior minister at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Houston, apologized to his congregation for his girlfriend Sadie Perkins' remarks while acknowledging that he never endorsed them in the first place. In a statement obtained by the Daily Mail, quote, my partner Sadie Perkins has made comments on social media regarding the horrific flooding that devastated Camp Mystic, he wrote. According to the report, he said, I want to be clear that I disavow her comments. I apologize to my congregation. I will continue to work to repair this harm this incident has caused. As I told you yesterday, that people were going to be coming out and denouncing her, even those closest to her, because they're so vile. Nobody wants to be associated with this at all, even her boyfriend. And many members of the congregation did as much. They also denounced her in that Daily Mail article. As many as 10 individuals have been charged with attempted murder for allegedly ambushing an ICE agents outside of a detention facility in Alvarado, Texas. Acting U.S. Attorney Nancy Larson discussed the charges in a press conference on Monday, calling it an egregious act. She says again, quote, this is an egregious act on federal and local law enforcement. Remember, they're supposed to be more and more violent as you go along. You know, they're supposed to be more violent. They have to be willing to get shot. And certainly some people were. They were willing to get shot. Before we get to it, because I think we're going to have this guest on the air. If we do, that'll happen shortly. We'll talk about that. I also promised yesterday that I would get into this Jeffrey Epstein thing. I have a theory about the FBI and the DOJ and their, I don't know, newfound nothing. I want to talk about that a little bit. Also, I was going to talk about the fact that the TSA has decided they're no longer going to make you take off your shoes. I'm not going to lie. I'm kind of happy. Are you? Would you rather take off your shoes? Like, are you so used to it now after that ridiculous shoe bomber? What was his name? Robert Reed? Wasn't that his name? Robert Reed? Only reason why I remember it because I think that's the name of, like, Mike Brady on the Brady Bunch. Isn't that his name? I'm almost certain that is it. Let's go to Lori in Glastonbury. Hey, Lori, it's been a bit.
Hey, Reese. So a couple of thoughts. Megyn Kelly had a really interesting take on the whole Epstein list thing. You might want to look that up. It was very interesting how she kind of explained a different perspective on it. And I feel like she's a pretty trustworthy voice. But I also kind of wanted to bring up the whole, I'm old enough to remember when DDT, I believe it was, was a insecticide that was sprayed, and they said, oh, it's fine. But then all of these babies were started to be born with deformities in their hands and in their feet and of their limbs. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, we need to ban this. This is a problem. I just started to think about that in relation to this DQAT thing.
Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. I also hearkened back to the whole Aaron Brockovich case in California with the chromium in the water. Oh, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine, until it's not. And it boggles the mind that with everything that has happened within the last few years, our political leaders have the unmitigated gall to think that we would believe everything that comes out of their mouths. You have to be kidding me.
I don't understand it either. I think you're 100% right. Again, this is the Army Corps of Engineers saying that it's safe, and everyone is citing these folks, but failing to, like, I guess the best way to put it is this way, Lori, and I'll get your response. It's one thing to support the Army Corps of Engineers and the EPA saying that it's safe, but then to not see any evidence of the individual supporting this, asking for the evidence that supports the claim. Okay, can you forward us why this is effective? Can you forward it to us why it's effective here or why it's okay to use here, yet the UK banned it, that China banned it? Can you tell us what's the discrepancy here that we're not understanding? But we haven't heard any of that. We've just heard people say, oh, it's misinformation. There is no misinformation. Everything we have is factual.
Well, and I am absolutely sick and tired of how everything that's banned in Europe is okay here, in the food, in the pesticides. Why?
That's right.
What is it about a government that is so willing to make money off of our unhealthiness?
Yeah.
You know, our lack of being healthy. They'd rather make money than see a healthy population. Yeah. What is that?
I don't know. Well, hey, we're going to get some answers. We're going to have Renee Muir here in a little bit, so stand by for that. I'm sure that's going to be a rip-roaring interview. We'll get to the bottom of it. Thank you, Lori.
I know. You're welcome. I'm sure it'll be a reporting, if nothing else.
I appreciate you. We'll talk to you later. We'll take a break. We'll come back. More news, more views, and we'll take more of your phone calls before we get into this interview. So stand by. It's Reese on the radio on WTIC News Talk 1080. All right, it looks like we're going to get a confirmation that Representative LaMark is going to be on the program. All right, so we're working on the final details of that right now, and I'll get all of the details in a second. So more than likely, sometime during, if not just after 4:30, we'll have her on the program to talk about this letter sent out about DQAT. Okay, so stand by for that. What else was I supposed to get into in this hour? I have everything set in front of me, but as the saying goes, if you want to make God laugh, make plans. And that's always where we are. Coming up, we've got the Between Rounds winner who is going to win a dozen bagels a month for 6 months, courtesy of Between Rounds, the Bagel Bakery and Sandwich Cafe. If you want to win that opportunity, yes, I go by Reese. If you like that opportunity, go to ReeseOnTheRadio.com right now. That's REESE ontheradio.com. And fill out the form there for Between Rounds. You'll see it there. Give all your information. Put in your birth date. Make sure you do that. And your telephone number. I promise you, I will not call you. I will not. You don't have to worry about being harassed. Nobody's going to harass you unless it's Between Rounds, but that's probably if they can't contact you some other way. All right? But I'm not going to call you. Even if you want me to, I'm not going to call you. I'm not a phone guy. Roland, you know what? I meant to ask you this, and I really do. I'm a little judgmental here. So I gauge individuals based upon this very simple criteria. There are a few things that are on this criteria, but this one is particular. Do you like to talk on the phone?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
It depends on, like, obviously my mom or wife, but other than that.
Yeah, you don't do. Are you a texter as opposed to calling people? Like, you text me a lot. You don't really call. You text a lot. Okay, I will tell you this. I hate texting. If I no, and let me tell you why. It sounds crazy, but there's a reason why. Because if I text you and you take a half an hour to respond to me, I hate that. If I text you, or if you text me and I respond, and you take a half an hour to respond to me, I'm like, we're in the middle of a conversation. Where'd you go? Don't do that to me. I don't like that. But I don't like people who talk on the phone a lot. I'm not a phone guy. I don't talk on the phone.
So you just don't like communication?
No.
The person that communicates.
This is the only form of communication I like, the radio. If I want to get my word out to somebody, I just do it on the air. That's all. I call out my friends right now. Hey, Derek, give me a holler. That's the way I do it. Let's get a check on weather and traffic with Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center. Mark, not a phone guy, right? You don't call people on the phone, do you?
No, not a big phone guy.
Yeah,
no.
I don't know. I think that's a guy thing, just not to be on the phone. You don't really need to do the whole talking to people.
No. I'm not a big phone guy.
How about a texter?
So.
Okay, all right, good.
So.
Right,
but I don't get mad if somebody doesn't text me right away. I don't worry about that.
Okay, put the knife down. Jesus, I know.
Put the knife down.
Hey, just stab away there, Mark. I get it. I got my hang-ups. Okay.
No, it's all right.
We're back, top of the hour here on WTIC. We're again going to see exactly what time we're going to get Representative Renee LaMark Muir on the program. I'm not exactly sure, but you have that many names. It's like saying the name of like one of these Disney actors. They have so many names. So Rep Renee LaMark Muir. I think that's how she wants to be. How she wants to be identified. We'll find out. I actually sent them a message like, how does she like to be addressed? We'll get her on the air. We'll talk about this DQuad thing again. Like I said, I had best laid plans, and it goes another direction. I started off the show by saying, we'll talk about this as more stories about it come out. So here we are. So we'll deal with that in a little bit, and we'll get to the bottom of it. So stand by for that. I don't think you're going to want to miss it because we need to get to the bottom of this stuff. Yes, she wants to be referred to as Representative LaMark Muir. Okay, fine. We'll do that. The Jeffrey Epstein thing, I want to make sure that people understand, and I will check out the Megyn Kelly thing. But if you want to call up about that and you've got a theory, let me throw one out there. Just because I don't know, it's just something that's itching at me that I have to say it. And I wouldn't say it if I didn't think that there was some rationale to this. Either the FBI concluded that Jeffrey Epstein had no client list and that he committed suicide. Either this is going to hurt MAGA entirely, or the MAGA representatives in Washington, from Donald Trump to Pam Bondi to Kash Patel to Dan Bongino. Either this is going to completely blow up their reputations as people who were on talk shows saying that we're going to get to the bottom of it. Either that's going to happen, or this is being used to get people in line. And when I say hurt MAGA, meaning maybe somebody's on it that we don't want to be on it. That would hurt everything. That's a possibility. I wouldn't, again, like I said, at this day and age, nothing is beyond the pale. It's quite possible that somebody very prominent could be on that list and it could blow up everything. So maybe keep it under wraps. But I don't think they do it this obviously. The other side is it could be used as that little carrot. You know what I'm talking about? That little carrot gets people to behave. Just saying. Just think about it. Let's get another check of our weather and traffic. We got Jason Caterina with weather and Mark Christopher. He's in a BPS Traffic Center. Mark, let me ask you a question. I'll ask Jason as well. Have you ever had to bribe somebody? Now, hear me out. I'm not saying in the, espionage type way.
Okay.
Have you ever had to, even your kids, have you ever had to?
Oh, absolutely.
You've had
all
to.
the time.
Can you
all the time.
think of anything offhand like you had to do, like to get the kid, like to do their homework or wash the dishes? Did you have to use a carrot and bait kind of deal?
Yeah.
You've done that.
Yeah, Dad, take me to Chick-fil-A. Okay, I need this done before we go.
Ooh. Oh, so you always wait until they initiate what they need. You've never
Right.
Okay, so that's when you play. Okay, that's a good way to get it.
I
So
hold
if they want
something
something
over them.
Yeah, I like
exactly.
I like that. Well, the way I used to do it is I used to tell the kids that I needed them to they couldn't get anything at like a C. They had to get above a C. No C pluses. They had to be B's or better.
Right.
And if they got a B or better, they could go to any party they wanted to. They could go to any event they wanted and go any vacation they wanted. But they had to do it. If they didn't come home with that, that was it. That was wasn't. And I'm not going to lie. They never came home with anything less than a B.
There you go. Well,
and
I've
been made broke several times because of it.
That's a great incentive, though. It really is.
President of the Chris Murphy Fan Club, Reese on the radio on News Talk 1080 WTIC.
All right, any moment now we will have Representative LaMark Muir on the program. We're just waiting for her to wrap up another thing that she's doing with WTIC here, and that should be wrapping up in any minute. So we may just interject into the show and just go directly to the representative. If not, we'll just wait until the next break to have that conversation. So be ready for that so that we can hash this thing out because she is one of the co-signers of this letter. Okay, and I want to get to the bottom of this as far as I possibly can. And to get beyond this, I guess what can only be described as some sort of partisan hit job that making this out to be something that it doesn't need to be, and to get everybody up on the same page. It's not. This isn't about debunking misinformation and putting a focus on it. Does no service to anyone. Everything that everyone has talked about this, including Chris Webby, has been accurate. He has documented everything that he has suggested. And this marginalizing of him. Again, a local personality in a region who, again, what's his intention? What's his intention? To harm people? No. Like I mean, you just, please tell me the nefarious nature in Chris Webby's post and his change.org petition. Just somebody lay that out for me. And that's all I need to, you make me understand that, and we're golden. So we'll talk about that. Let me get to Frank in Woodbridge. Hello, sir.
How you doing today?
Pretty good. What's up?
The one thing that people, most of your listeners hang around with good people. There's just one thing they don't understand. They don't care about the long term. They look at the short-term gratification of money. That's what motivates these people. And when that's the number one thing that motivates you, you don't care about human life. I know for some people that's hard to believe. You hang around with good people. Unfortunately, I hang around with a lot of bad people, and that was their only motive.
So, Frank, am I an outlier here when I'm always like, maybe this has always been my case. When you remember me talking very early in my career here at WTIC. When I turned 55, I said I've been wanting to be 55 since I was 15. Right? I was always thinking about what it's like. I'm 55 now, and now I'm wondering how vibrant or vivacious I'm going to be at age 70. I'm always thinking about the future. Some people tell me I need to stop. In fact,
they don't care about that. They look at the bottom line every day. If you and Roseanne were going to open up a company tomorrow, it'd be a corporation, and you were going to sell a chemical, and you two were the only one in the world that knew 20 years down the road it was going to cause cancer, but you make billions of dollars selling that chemical. Would you sell it?
I don't think I could. I don't think Roseanne would let me.
Because you have a soul. There's the point I'm trying to. These people don't have any souls. There's too many people in this country that would sell that chemical. And when 20 years comes later and people die or they're deformed, what are you going to do? Sue the corporation?
I'm not going to lie. There is there's no doubt there is a rationale within certain pockets of the world, in fact, that say, God will sort them out, so to speak. It's like, why care now? This is, something that we need to do now. I'm assuming that phone call is happening right now. Frank, let me get to this because it looks like the representative is calling right now. Let me see if I can get to this. Roland, I'm just going to pick this up, okay?
All right, go ahead.
All right, so okay. All right. Can I assume that this is Representative Renee LaMark Muir?
Yes, it is.
Hello. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Good afternoon. I really appreciate you coming on under such short notice. Look, let me preview this by saying that this conversation is going to get a little heavy. I hope you're prepared for that.
Sure.
Okay, good. Let's talk about this letter. This letter that you signed on to, that you sent to us, sounds nothing different than what we've already heard from the news media that has gone to great lengths to smear anybody who has questions about the use of DQuat. And this is what I mean by that. It says there have been false and misleading information on social media that has triggered fear among residents about the use of the herbicide DQuat to combat the growth of hydrilla in the Connecticut River. It alleges federal and state agencies, scientists, and environmental advocates are intentionally harming rather than protecting the river and other waterways in the face of a serious environmental threat from hydrilla. I'm here to tell you, as one of the people who have been online and have had an interview with Chris Webby, that statement couldn't be further from the truth.
Well, what do you have to prove that it is the truth? I mean,
okay, I will address it.
The facts that I see online, I'm just saying the facts that I've read online about what's being said, and when my constituents call me with concern, and what they're explaining to me isn't necessarily accurate.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been trying to put out accurate information about the problem of hydrilla, the health of our river, and the herbicide DQuat.
Okay. So let's talk about the focus of this, because I understand the problem with hydrilla. I know that that is a primary focus of those who wish to eradicate it. But the focus needs to be on the focus, and that is DQuat. So let's just talk about the concern for DQuat. Hydrilla, we know the problem there. We understand that it's going to choke off habitat, is going to hurt Connecticut writ large. We get it. But let's talk about DQuat. What has been
that, just to interrupt for a second, I think that, I think you're correct that we understand some of the problem of hydrilla, but what I feel is that that the severity is being undermined, that the actual threat to the life of the Connecticut River and the waterways and the ecosystems around all of that, that threat is being minimized.
Okay, no offense.
It's taking the focus off of. I mean, we have to save the river, right? If the river gets to a certain point, we're going to lose it forever, and there's no bringing it back.
Okay,
so the whole ecology will change.
Representative LaMark Muir, I understand that. I'm in the business of understanding the importance of putting focus on things. That's my job. But again, the eradication of hydrilla, the use of DQuat is going to be doing that. So the focus on everyone's mind is DQuat and about how harmful it is. It is banned in Europe. That is a fact. There is no misinformation about that. It has been linked to over 400 to 500 deaths a year in Brazil, where it's used often. China has partially banned it because it is also toxic in ways that they can't or don't want people to use it in just normal use. The concern here in Connecticut is about other alternatives to DQuat. In fact, the part that really is sort of getting people a little, I guess, riled up is that, one, it had to be sort of exposed by Chris Webby, who put it on a post, which then forced the Army Corps of Engineers to put out a statement a month after they began public conversations. So I think it was June 3rd, between June 3rd and July 13th. They had public comment on this, but didn't release a public statement until last week, Wednesday, for people to realize that they could respond to the use of DQuat. And then we found out all of this other information in other places where DQuat is harmful to endangered species here in Connecticut and other things. And now people want to have a conversation about misinformation, but yet aren't talking about why DQuat was banned in Europe and why we believe that we shouldn't use it here. They're saying that that's misinformation. That's not misinformation.
Okay, you threw a lot into that one
Of course.
paragraph there. So I'll take them one at a time, if I could.
Please.
First of all, in terms of DQAT being banned in Europe and other countries, I spoke to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and the State Department of Environmental Protection about just that. And I read some of the research projects from the scientists and engineers in those countries. And DQAT in those countries was primarily used for crops, so it was used on land. So that's a different application. The regulations for the amount and the frequency of spraying in Europe and other countries is different than it is here in the United States. Excuse me. And the oversight, the environmental oversight is different, as well as the geography, right? So some of the countries that use DQAT on crops are landlocked countries that don't necessarily have the spread in their waterways and in the rivers.
The UK is not a landlocked. Wait. With all due respect, Representative, the UK.
I think I was still talking.
But wait a minute, the UK is not a landlocked country.
Can I just finish?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, finish.
Some of the countries are landlocked. Some of them aren't. They have coasts. They have marine transit. They have recreational transit. All of that kind of stuff. But I'm just saying is that a broad statement of saying it's banned in another continent or another country, therefore it should be banned in Connecticut or in the United States. You're not comparing always apples to apples. So when the scientists look at that, the scientists here working specifically in Connecticut, that's what I'll talk about because DQAT's used in other states, in the waterways in other states, but I'm familiar with what's happening here in Connecticut. So if you're going to compare that, you can't compare DQAT being used in excessive amounts on crops on land versus being used in more appropriate amounts over a shorter period of time in waterways. So that's one issue. I just think that it's a very scientific process, right? And just making broad statements of it's hazardous or it's not hazardous, right? Without understanding the science behind it is where sort of we as a country are getting in trouble, right? We're simplifying complex issues or complex problems.
Whoa. Wait, but hold on. First of all, Representative, we're not simplifying complex issues. People are doing the work that no one else is doing. And look, with all due respect, I know you spoke to the Army Corps of Engineers and
I'm doing the work.
No, ma'am, let me finish, please. I know you're talking to the Army Corps of Engineers and I know you're talking to the EPA, right? But this so-called complicating the science or science being complicated, every place that I have read, every place, and I've done the research for the last week. By the way, you guys didn't decide to respond on this until a week after it became news. We made it news on Tuesday last week. You guys are just joining the fray. And you're telling me that you're releasing a statement today. Sounds like you've done all the research in the last, 48, 28, 24 hours? We've been doing the research since Tuesday of last week. And every day I've got to read something new from other countries. I've done everything from reading the studies in China, which have also partially banned it, in the UK, which is not a waterlocked country. They banned it there, even though they permit the sale of it. I don't hear anybody talking about the deaths that are taking place in Brazil to the tune of 400 to 500. Did you know about that, by the way? That there were from 2016 to today, 2019 to today, there have been to the tune of 400 to 500 per year who have died from inhalation of DQAT. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, but they're not using the DQAT in the amounts and in the way we're using it. So you can't compare that, right? So any sort of chemical, I mean, just think about prescription medicine, right? Any sort of chemical is toxic. But if you use it in the right way and in specific amounts, you have to weigh the benefits versus the risk.
And we're supposed, right? And you're saying that we should just trust them because they say that it's going to be used safely. Even though, as I read here, a peer-reviewed study from 2025 found that DQAT can severely damage the gut. The U.S. Right to Know, a public health research group, and the newsroom wrote that in an article that says that DQAT kills all vegetation that it touches. The environmental organization Greenpeace reported in 2024 that DQuat poisonings were on the rise among farmers in Brazil. So, again, you're talking about them.
Got to put it on hold.
Okay, look, I'm going to put...
They're using it on crops on the land.
They're using
right?
it,
it's
period.
A application.
Okay,
it's a different application.
Hold
right?
on. Hold on for a second. Representative, wait. I got to do a hard break, but just hold on. We're going to get right back to you because you called in a little late, but we got a hard break I got to take real quick. Let me get to weather and traffic. Stay on the line. We'll get back to you in a moment. Let's get to Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center.
Stay locked in. Reese on the radio is on WTIC News Talk 1080.
Sorry about that. We're back. We're going to do weather and traffic in a second, and then we'll bring back Representative Renee LaMark Muir to talk more about the use of DQuat. And because I know the representative's on hold, the important thing here, and maybe that's being lost in all of this, as much as an argument will ensue about this and this focus on mis and disinformation, I know this argument and I know this debate about mis and disinformation. I know it like the back of my hand. I know it like my Social Security number, okay? The use of that term is to diminish debate on something that people are concerned about. The question about all of this is, have we even considered other alternatives? Has anybody had a conversation? And if you had a conversation with the people at the Army Corps of Engineers or the EPA or any of that matter, where has been the interest in alternatives and the conversation? And I understand that Democrats want to be on board and write this letter and say that, no, it's mis and disinformation and we need to do this. Get it. But what I'm asking is that, again, all of these people have not been engaging in mis and disinformation. They've been doing the research to find out what's going on. What is this stuff? And is it harmful to us? And what they're finding isn't helpful. What they're finding is problematic. And the question we're asking of the people who are writing this letter is, have you considered their concerns, or are you just writing them off as mis and disinformation, folks? That's not helpful. The fact that we know, and we are talking about peer-reviewed study that we've all read from people who are, quote-unquote, the scientists who have put out these papers. People have diligently gone through it. Let's not dismiss them. Let's find alternatives. When we get back, we're going to talk to Representative about C&D, about our conversation with Jeffrey Cordisco, to find out if there's been any conversation with legislators at all, to find out if we can do an eco-friendly removal of hydrilla. And maybe since this is something that's mis and disinformation, maybe we can also find out why the Army Corps of Engineers has somehow decided out of nowhere they're no longer going to be doing the treatments this year after they put out a letter that said it was going to begin after the 4th of July. So I'm prefacing all of that while the representative is listening. If the Army Corps of Engineers said that this is harmless and there's nothing for us to worry about, why did they rescind doing it this year after they told us it was going to happen after the 4th of July? And with that time, perhaps we can use the next year, because they don't plan on doing it until the 2026, July 4th of 2026. Perhaps we should use that year to find eco-friendly alternatives like the eco device. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name, but I'll get it in a second. But this eco device that C&D Aquatics is thinking about using. We'll get to all of that in a second. So stand by. Another check of the weather and traffic with Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center.
The self-proclaimed love child of Rush Limbaugh.
We're running a strange program, y'all.
Reese on the radio on News Talk 1080 WTIC.
All right, we're back. It's Reese on the radio, News Talk 1080 WTIC. We're on the phone with Representative Renee LaMark Muir, and she's here to have a conversation with us about the use of DQuat in the waterways around Connecticut. We know that this has been used in plenty of places. Representative,
what I'd like to address some of the things that you stated previously when I
actually that was my next statement. Would you like to address those?
I would. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So the first thing is that you stated incorrectly that I just started working on this the other day, and that's not true. My job is not to be the first one out of the gate. My job is not to escalate fear. My job is to provide facts and reasonable solutions that benefit the state. So I have been looking into this issue for more than a week now. I've had multiple meetings with various agencies. I've been reading reports. I've been speaking to legislators on the Environment Committee, as well as legislators who represent the towns up and down the Connecticut River, from Windsor Locks to Old Saybrook. And not that just those representatives are concerned about the issue, but that's kind of where I focused it, because it's sort of a pressing issue for all of us who live along the river. And that's why this letter, this press release, has bipartisan support. It's been signed by Democrats and Republicans.
That means nothing to me.
Well, I'm just, you responded that.
I know. I understand the support, but I don't care if it's bipartisan. I don't care. That has nothing you know what? Republicans can be wrong too on the environment. So saying that Republicans support it means nothing to me. I'm not even addressing this as a partisan. And I know you didn't hear my speech earlier, but
right,
this
is. You're working on the assumption that legislators are just always wrong. Like, you're not even.
I'm sorry. Wait. I didn't hear that. I'm under the impression what?
I said you're working on the assumption that the legislators are always wrong, and that's not
actually
accurate.
No. Here's what I'm saying. I'm working on the assumption.
Trying to provide accurate information.
No, I'm not.
The other thing is that you also
Representative, you're cutting me off, and I'm trying to respond to an accusation you levied at me. So allow me to do that. Okay? I am not under any assumption that the legislators are always wrong. Here's what I'm working on. We are doing the research. We are being dismissed as spreading mis- and disinformation. We are not going to stand by and tolerate that, because a conversation needs to be had. And you refuse to have that conversation, with the exception of this point right here, having it with me. But by telling me that there is a spread of mis- and disinformation, but yet you still haven't addressed the fact that we know that several people in the EPA have said that this is a problem to the gut, that this also causes organ failure, that we have deaths to the tune of 400 to 500 a year. These are all factual, and it's not been addressed as to why people are concerned about reading that data. You haven't disavowed it. You haven't suggested that data is false, which again lends to the point why we should be cautious, because you can't dispel.
No, that data is. When you read that data, you have to read all of the sentence, right? Like, you have to read the whole report.
Please.
And what that says is that when it's used in certain specific amounts, and when it's applied on specific types of geography or crops, or it has different impacts, right? So in Connecticut,
you mean like wind? You mean like wind and temperature?
Right, but we are not used or on land or on plants that are growing in the ground as opposed to growing in the water. We are using it in ways where it's been found to be not hazardous.
What happens to the hydrilla once it's sprayed?
You asked about different methods.
What happens to the hydrilla once it's sprayed, Representative? What happens to the hydrilla once it's sprayed? What happens to it?
It dies.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It goes to the bottom of the water. Did you know that?
It goes to the bottom and becomes inactive.
Right? But you said it dies. Okay, but it's at the bottom of the water. What happens to it after it's hit the bottom of the water? Does it ever rise to the top of the water?
No, it doesn't. That hydrilla does not regrow again.
Oh, I didn't say. I didn't. Don't misuse my words. I said, does it rise to the top of the water again? I didn't say rehabitates or regrows. Does it rise? Does it rise to the water after it settles at the bottom? Does it ever reemerge at the top of the water? It's okay to say I don't know. It's okay to say I don't know.
It may, but
it does.
What I've been told is that at that point the dequat becomes inactive.
It doesn't matter whether or not it becomes inactive. It's the point is that the hydrilla raises to the top of the water and settles back down, and then of course it flows throughout the river. Isn't that a fact?
Right, but then once it's treated, right, then that hydrilla becomes less transmissible, right? It doesn't float somewhere else and grow. And this is a good opportunity to talk about the different methods, right?
How about hydrilla in the soil? What happens to the
that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is doing? Two of the methods that have been tried are basically, one is it's like a big mat, right? So they would lay a mat down on top of a patch of hydrilla.
Yeah, I'm aware of it.
That was found to be ineffective because the hydrilla grew up around the mat or it grew through the mat. And then when you pulled the mat up, like all that untreated hydrilla got released into the water. Another method that was tried, another non-chemical method that was tried, is it's called a mechanical method. It's basically like lawn mowing, right? It's chopping up the hydrilla. The problem with that is because of the invasive nature and the transmissibility of the plant, when you chop it up, all these little pieces of hydrilla float downstream in the river or they float around in a lake.
Representative, that's not the only alternative. Have you heard of the eco-harvester, ma'am?
Right, but that hasn't been proved to be effective either.
Wait, how? Whoa. That's false.
There's different strains. There's different strains of hydrilla. And
Representative.
What we're trying to deal with here in Connecticut, that is not effective.
Representative, that is false. That is categorically false.
Well, no, it's not false.
Let me
you believe it's false.
No, not believe. No. See, this is, again, you don't even know me. You don't know me from a hole in the ozone layer. You don't know what I believe or what I know. You have no.
I think that's accurate on both sides.
Okay,
right?
but no. But again, I'm not casting any aspersions on you about what you believe. You're telling me what I believe. You don't know what I believe. You have no idea what I know. I'm asking you questions to find out. Representative, I'm asking you questions, ma'am. I'm not
giving any space that I have knowledge.
I'm asking you questions to ascertain what you know. You are telling me what I know, and you haven't asked one question.
You're not giving any space to the fact that I may have some knowledge in this area.
Okay, I'm trying to explain to you that I do. An eco-harvester does not cut up hydrilla. Do you know that?
Yes.
Okay, an eco-harvester is used in Florida. Do you know that?
No.
Okay, in Florida, do you know how they get rid of their hydrilla, where most of our problem in Connecticut has come from? Because that's where it is. They use manatees in Florida to eat up the hydrilla. And guess what? It always comes back, but thankfully they have manatees to eat it. They also use eco-harvesters in order to clean it up. And the eco-harvester does not break up the hydrilla. It literally pulls it out. Now, of course, there are going to be some strains that get away because you're pulling it from the ground. That's always going to happen. We're never going to get rid of hydrilla. It's something we're going to have to continue to do. So the point here is that, remember, you guys knew about this in 2016, didn't decide to do anything until 2014. You started in 2014. You knew about how it was a problem in 2016. You didn't decide to do anything about it until 2023. And now we're in 2025, and we want to use what the landscapers are calling the nuclear option. And now we're telling you that there is an eco-friendly way to pull up the hydrilla. We'll never get rid of it, but we know that there is an eco-friendly way to do it. And you're telling me you know nothing about it?
No, I do. So eco-harvesters, from what I've learned and from the scientists and the engineers that I've talked to, eco-harvesters have some of the same problem that the other mechanical methods do, right? So it's small fragments of the plant material spread, right? So it causes regrowth. When you chop up hydrilla, it's a more rapid pace, like it accelerates the growth. So the eco-harvester, like other mowing methods, chops it up. Eco-harvesters have, there's limits to the depth that the eco-harvester can go to. And some parts of the Connecticut River are actually very deep, especially when you get down here to the lower Connecticut River Valley. So they can't, even if we wanted to, and it was, let's say it was the 100% best way to eradicate hydrilla, until the technology catches up in terms of depth, we couldn't use that.
Wait a minute, you said we couldn't use it. Jeffrey,
in some parts of the river, because it has a depth, it has a ceiling on how deep it can go.
I understand that, but
how deep it can go.
Jeffrey Cordisco, right, of C&D. In fact, his company's called C&D Underwater Maintenance, and I finally got his name right, the name of the company right. He contacted Jeremiah Foley, who has been the head, pretty much the guy who's been leading the charge on all of this hydrilla and dequat stuff. He contacted him back in 2023 and heard about the use of dequat back then. Jeffrey contacted him and said, hey, listen, I think we have an alternative. We'd love to come down and to illustrate and to at least find out if we can do this without putting chemicals. No phone call, no follow-up was given to C&D. Now, you guys are telling me that you investigated everything, and these guys are the premier removers of muck and mayhem inside the waterways, and you're telling me that you guys have tried this? Who have you contacted? Who's the company that tried this through the eco-friendly harvester? And which companies are there? And we'd love to talk to them.
Is that a question?
Yes, ma'am. Who are the eco-harvesters that you tried and used before? And we'd love to talk to them to find out what the issue is, because we want to get to the bottom of this, and we should have all details about what's been done outside of using DEQUAT. Don't you think that's important to the public?
Well, I don't know the names of the companies. I mean, it's this project is being overseen by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I am not excusing Connecticut for the state of Connecticut from having any responsibility in this program, but because the Connecticut River crosses state lines and because of the issue of hydrilla, this research and eradication project is being overseen by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Who do you work for?
Who they spoke to?
Who do you work for?
Which company?
No, ma'am. Who do you work for?
I work for the constituents in the 36th district.
They are concerned about the use,
state of
ma'am.
Connecticut.
They're concerned about the use of DEQUAT in the waterways. How about this? And it's a novel, ma'am. It's just a novel idea. Okay. These questions are important. Putting out a letter that says that these concerned constituents are engaging in mis and disinformation is not a dialogue. It's dismissive. Fair to say, or no?
No, and I think it's unfair to imply that the only work I am doing is putting out a press release, right? Like I'm continuing to work on this project. I'm going to work on this project.
So you're going to seek alternatives to DEQUAT, is what you're telling me, right? Please make some news right now. Make some news right now on the show that says that you guys are going. No. Don't give me the follow the science nonsense. Nobody believes in that anymore. We did that with COVID. We did that with follow the science on COVID. I'm asking you, are you going to investigate alternatives to DEQUAT in the year that you have? Because the Army Corps of Engineers said they're not doing it this year. So are we going to investigate alternatives?
If you would let me answer, it's not a yes or no answer, but yes. I mean, the Army Corps of Engineers research project is looking at not only the use of DEQUAT, but it's looking at alternative measures.
Representative,
right?
did you misunderstand my question, ma'am?
We are.
Did you misunderstand my question? Did you misunderstand my question?
I didn't.
Okay, let me repeat it.
You asked me if we were going to commit to looking at alternative measures.
Yes, you.
I'm telling you that I am. I am committed to that, yes.
Okay, thank you. All I want you, listen, with all due respect, don't put this in the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm pretty sure they're chomping at the bit. Hold on. I'm sure they're chomping at the bit to use DEQUAT. Well, for whatever reason they have, because it crosses state lines, yada, yada, yada. Who cares? Your responsibility is to the constituents that you represent who are asking you to search out an alternative. And I'm asking you
on the... that. Yes, I understand that.
So all we want you to do is to come back with us and tell us that if you could, and it would be helpful, perhaps to get all the people who signed this letter to contact companies like C&D Underwater Maintenance. It doesn't have to be them, but any other one of them, to actually go down and find out how much work they can do, and then give somebody a report to at least let us know that this isn't a one-off, that you're not just going to let the Army Corps of Engineers come in and use DEQUAT.
No, I will do that, but I want you to consider the fact that there are inherent limitations to mechanical harvesters. And I've tried to talk about those.
When they get on the ground,
the thing of it is,
when they get in the water and they prove that,
hydrilla is such a serious problem, right? Hydrilla is such a serious problem that, in one sense, we don't have the luxury to sit back and do nothing, because we're going to lose the Connecticut
Really?
River.
You don't have the luxury to sit back and do nothing? 2016 is when you guys realized it was a problem. You guys sat back for a considerable amount of time. You guys sat back for 8 years. What are you talking about? We don't have the time. They sat back for 8 years and did nothing.
No, that's not true.
Really?
That's not true.
2016, they knew this was a problem.
Right, and they didn't just start spraying DEQUAT in 2018, right? There was waste. They looked at mats, they looked at harvesters, they looked at other herbicides.
Yeah, and now we're at a
this is
dire
an
point.
ongoing thing.
And now,
And so
Representative, we're at a dire point where it has to be done with the nuclear option. Look, I appreciate your time.
And unfortunately, that's what happens. And I would just like to just say one last thing.
Okay, you know what? I'll let you do that. I'll let you do that because I got a hard break. I'll let you get the last word in. Stand by for a second. Let me put you on hold. I promise I will not take that opportunity from you. Let's get some more weather and traffic from Jason Caterina and Mark Christopher in the BPS Traffic Center. Hey, buddy.
All right, Reese, thank you very much. Westbound 84 tied up approaching the Bulkley Bridge out to 45 Flatbush Avenue. 84 eastbound slowing 46 Sisson Avenue down to the Bulkley Bridge. A little tight again between 58 and 59 in the 384 interchange. Southland 91 delays 33 to 32. Again, 27 to 28. More slow traffic as you move down by exit 21 in Cromwell. And another bump 19 to 17 as you move down into Meriden. If you're on the northbound side of 91, looking good. Cromwell through downtown up into Windsor. 291, 384 okay. 2 eastbounds heavy coming off of I-84 out to exit 2A in East Hartford. 2 westbound slows 1D up to the 84 West merge. 9 north is southbound slowing approaching the Aragoni Bridge in Middletown. 9 northbound delays Berlin up into New Britain between 32 and 36. 84 eastbound Cheshire slows 26 to the 691 interchange. 84 westbound in Cheshire slows 26 to 25A. If you're heading toward New Haven, southbound Parkway delays 61 into the West Rock, and 95 south, you're tight from 46 down to 44 in New Haven. Traffic and weather together on the 8th. WTIC News Talk 1080.
WTIC weather.
Clouds and breaks of sun for our Tuesday afternoon. It'll be hot and humid with a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm this afternoon that could produce flooding, downpours, and localized damaging wind gusts. The high hitting 90, becoming partly cloudy with a couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm tonight. It remains warm and humid, too. The low only down to 72. Not as hot, but still humid on Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. The high of 87. Thursday, cloudy, humid, couple of showers and a heavy thunderstorm. The high of 81. I'm meteorologist Jason Caterina in the WTIC Weather Center.
WTIC is celebrating 100 years on the air and 100 years of serving Connecticut. This is WTIC and WTIC FM HD2 Hartford, an Odyssey station.
86 degrees, 5 o'clock. I'm Dave Mager, WTIC 1080 News. There's a heat advisory and a flood watch for most of the region. The latest significant thunderstorm is in northern New London County and southern Windham County, going down to about 70 and humid tonight. The Milford jury deliberating the murder case against Raoul Valley returned to the courtroom last hour to watch videotape. They looked at some of Valley's testimony concerning his friend Tyler De Silva. Tyler was part of a teen brawl where Valley stabbed 4 others in Shelton in 2022. Valley testified he returned to the fight to, quote, save De Silva. 17-year-old Jimmy McGrath was killed. 3 others were injured. Earlier, the jury said it was still deadlocked on the charge of murder and can't reach a verdict on 3 counts of assault. Judge Shari Murphy told the jury to continue its work.
By the court's estimate, you have been deliberating a little less than 5 hours at this point in time. I would simply suggest that you continue with your deliberations. Again, you should review the evidence and the position of each juror to determine if any evidence has been overlooked or any juror's position misunderstood with respect to either the evidence or the law.
And those deliberations continued until a few minutes ago when court was adjourned. They'll be back at it for a 3rd day tomorrow. New and disturbing numbers about those missing from July 4th flooding in Texas. Governor Greg Abbott spoke a few minutes ago.
Just in the Kerr County area alone, there are 161 people who are known to be missing,
including 5 children and a counselor from Camp Mystic. It's been 4 days since anyone was found alive. More than 100 people were killed. Lorena Guillen's RV park was wiped out.
This was our paradise, but now it's all gone. I mean, it's gone. It's just, there's nothing left.
There are questions about whether flood victims were warned in time or if they never received warning messages that were issued. Wide parts of the country are still without internet service. Rice University professor Avantika Gori is studying ways for the federal government to deliver those services.
There are new technologies, for example, satellite-based Starlink that can provide better internet access in remote areas. As to why it hasn't been addressed yet, likely a lack of coordination to kind of get the project implemented.
She says we should move towards thinking of widespread internet access as a public utility. A pair of judicial branch unions say contract talks with the governor's office have broken down. Their contract expired at the end of last month. They represent supervising judicial marshals and other branch workers, saying the state's current wage offer falls short. State budget official Chris Colby says the administration plans to present a new offer in the coming days. Measles cases at a 33-year high.
There have been at least 1,277 cases so far this year, and it's only July.
We haven't seen a number that high since 1992.
Professor Matt Ferrari is the director of Penn State's Center for Infectious Disease Dynamics.
There's really only one cause of an increase in measles cases, and that's an erosion of measles vaccination.
The CDC declared measles officially eliminated in the U.S. in 2000. Ferrari says we can get there again through vaccinations.
We have had the tools for a long time, and we just need to use them.
Michael Wallace, CBS News.
On Wall Street, the Dow was down 166, S&P dropped 4 points, NASDAQ was up 6 points. WTIC Sports, Red Sox and Colorado Rockies again. They're on WTIC with the pregame at 6:10. Yankees host Seattle, Mets in Baltimore, Yard Goats in Portland. At Wimbledon, two-time defending champ Carlos Alcaraz and American Taylor Fritz advanced to the semis in the women's quarters. American Amanda Anisimova and top seed Arina Sabalenka were also winners. For more, check out WTIC.com. I'm Dave Maker, WTIC 1080 News.
There's nothing like coming home to a nice house, unless it's not. Say, come on into Campbell. Campbell Cooling is all about service 24/7. Campbell's seasoned expert technicians use all major brands, including American Standard and Mitsubishi, to do the job right. So if you're concerned about what condition your conditioner is in, contact Campbell Cooling. Campbell wants to say thank you to all of our military men and women for their service. Veteran-owned and managed. Visit CampbellCooling.com.
Campbell Cooling uses all major name brands, including American Standard Heating and Air Conditioning and Mitsubishi Heating and Cooling Equipment.
Sweeney, Director of Operations at United Tool and Die Company in West Hartford.
He had a serious problem with his managed service provider.
We were paying them approximately $130,000 a year.
So Pete called Tab Computer Systems, an actual service provider.
Tab went through everything with us, provided us with a price that was significantly less.
Call Tab today, 1-888-TAB-4-HELP, 1-888-TAB-4-HELP, or visit tabinc.com. Technologies advancing business. Tab Computer Systems. The hour that packs a punch. It's Reese on the radio on WTIC News Talk 1080.
All right, we're back. We're going to get the representative so she can have the last word. I want to make sure that I want to make sure that her point of view is fully represented here on Reese on the radio. And again, look, for anybody who thinks this is a partisan issue, because I'm a conservative, it isn't about that. The concern, again, as you all heard, Tim in Hamden is he's practically my adversary. Okay? He is on the left. He's on the Green Party, for crying out loud. This is across, again, there's no ideological bent on any of it. And the argument about trust the science, unfortunately, when it comes to government, does not fly anymore. Okay? It just doesn't. People are learning so many things now that they are able to have free access to information. And I just want to make sure I make this abundantly clear to constituents as well as people who are here to represent us. Okay? It is not mis- and disinformation to be curious or apprehensive about a known toxic chemical to be put in the water. It is worth having a conversation about. No one should be belittled or maligned as mis- and disinformation. The interest should be at setting people's minds at ease. No one should start off a press release by talking about misinformation or articles saying that with public officials saying things like, listen to the experts, not a rapper on the internet. That's not engaging. Chris Webby, myself, or anyone else who's concerned, they're not doing it for partisan reasons like they hate folks. Not because they're trying to score political points. They're concerned about the health and well-being of their family, their friends, and their neighbors. If we can start there, we can get to the bottom of it. That's all. That's all.
Reese on the radio is getting ready to drop some knowledge on WTIC News Talk 1080.
Drop it. All right, we are back. We have got Representative Renee LaMark Muir on the program, and we're talking about the use of DQuat in the waterways. It was alleged that this was going to be done after the 4th of July weekend, but after WFSB, the CBS affiliate, did a report on it, the Army Corps of Engineers, out of nowhere, after sending out a press release that it was supposed to begin after the 4th of July, miraculously changed its plan and said that they, haven't even received a permit to do any of the spraying, and they have no intention of spraying until next year, which caused a lot of confusion that a lot of us were just going, why were they trying to tell us that it was going to happen this year after the 4th of July and then all of a sudden change course? We never got an answer, and Deep hasn't responded either. But thankfully, we got Representative Renee LaMark Muir on the phone because we can't seem to get anyone. So I want to just thank you for at least coming into the den and having a conversation about this, even though we don't see eye to eye on it. But thank you for giving us some answers.
Well, I think in general we see eye to eye. We do agree that a discussion needs to be had, and the public needs to be aware of what its government is doing. But I would like to clarify some of that information about permits and not spraying. And so the application of DQuat in the Connecticut River that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was permitted by the state to do has been done. You're right on that. Okay. There are permits pending for certain lakes in the state where hydrilla is really sort of running rampant. Mm-hmm. And so the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is working with municipalities who apply for these permits and the state to apply DQuat in some of these lakes and waterways. So the project, right, the eradication project for the Connecticut River, you are correct, it's completed. And it was completed before the sort of end of the hydrilla season, which is like late September, early October. Yeah. But there are still other bodies of water where municipalities or the state, in conjunction with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, is going to do that.
Representative, what's the cost of this?
Let me just say that. So let me just finish. Let me just say that.
Go ahead.
And I want to say to that. This is a problem, right? There's an expectation, like a lot of problems, that the state needs to solve this issue, and we do, and we are working on it. But if there's sort of an underlying mistrust of government, then you're sort of putting everyone in a double bind, like you can't win for losing. So we have to, and you're 100% right, and I agree with you, that we all have to be open to information from both sides.
Thank
and
you.
We all have to be aware that perhaps our opinions could be changed.
Well,
right?
no, absolutely.
I
believe
I'm going to change yours, and I'm not saying you're going to change mine, but maybe we will over time come to a compromise, because that's what government's all about, right? Government's all about a compromise, what's best for the most.
Well, government officials or elected officials have to come to a compromise. There is no compromise between us and you. With all due respect, you're there to do our bidding. It's not a compromise. It's not you and I having a discussion about, hey, can you do this? Or if not, let's compromise on what you can do. No, this is you represent us, so that's kind of the way that goes. But I just want to, you made a good.
I represent the people in my district.
I understand.
The people in my district voted me. They sent me to the Capitol to use my education.
To do their bidding.
My expertise.
To do their
my
bidding.
Experience.
To do their bidding.
And my understanding. Yes, to understand an issue. And then to bring that issue back, and as a district, we come to a solution.
Right.
And then that solution has to benefit everybody, because hydrilla is just not in Deep River or Essex or Chester and Haddam.
Right. No. We're well aware of that.
Crossing the state.
We're well aware of that.
And there's different, right? Lakes are different than the rivers. Salt ponds are different than right? So they're all different. But there's that. So I would like to just end by saying that until we all agree as citizens of the state and as the state government, until we can find the best solutions to protect our waterways in terms of either an herbicide or a mechanical way, I think we all can agree that we want to protect our waterways and our river. And we all need to do it, step up and do it individually. And I would just like, as a sort of a public service, to remind people that the best way to prevent the spread of hydrilla is to clean, drain, and dry in any type of watercraft or fishing gear or swimming gear that you take into a river or lake. Even if you don't think there's hydrilla, please follow this recommended procedure. And if we all do a little bit, then maybe we can help to do our part where we won't need chemicals and we won't need mechanical waste.
Representative,
So
before you
like
go, I know you
that.
want to leave, but I got to ask you this last question. Who's paying for this?
Who's paying for the clean, drain, and dry?
No. Who's
paying
for
the DQAT?
Yeah.
Oh, the DQAT. The DQAT is being paid through the federal budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's roughly a $5 million appropriations. It was flat funded the last couple of years because, as we all know, Congress hasn't been able to agree upon an actual federal budget, so they've just been kind of doing these extensions. So it's difficult in those extensions for them to want to increase spending. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for this project has gotten a flat funding of roughly $5 million. It is, I'm being told, a relatively non-controversial program because it does cross many states in the country. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers expertise is respected throughout Congress. So I was told that they generally, if they can come and justify a specific request for an appropriation, that they generally get it. So
are the towns and municipalities seeing any of that money?
So municipalities that decide to spray DQAT, they pay for it, right? So if a town has a lake, and I can mention a few lakes that are really having a problem with it in the state, but I don't want to put any municipality on the, the forefront. But if a municipality wants to spray it, like there is a municipality in my district, then it comes through their funds, and they may have received grant funding, or they may have had some other funding stream to pay that, but that doesn't come from the Army Corps' budget. Their money is used for the research project, and each year sites are determined for that season's application.
But that site, whatever it is that they're doing, the town that they're doing the spraying in doesn't see any of the money at all, is what you're telling me.
Well, if a municipality chooses on its own to treat a lake that's in its jurisdiction, it can do that. And then some of the permits that are currently pending that are going through the process at the Department of Engineering and Environmental Protection are for lakes. And some of those permits are being applied for by municipalities.
That's right. So there is funding that's going in. That's from the federal government. This, by the way, this $5 million.
No. It may be for municipality. It's most likely a municipality's.
That's separate from. That's separate from this.
Or it's a grant. Yeah, it's their budget. They may have gotten a grant. It may be a federal grant. Right. So if you. Right.
The federal.
But it's not the money that's appropriated to the Army Corps of Engineers for this research project is not going when a municipality applies for a permit. It's not done through that.
Okay.
All right. Money.
All right. I just wanted to clear that up because that was one of the accusations here that people were poisoning the water for their own financial gain. So I wanted to address that before you left. By the way, could you change the wording in your thing? You said that that DQAT is not considered hazardous. That is a factual falsehood. It is considered hazardous. It may not be considered hazardous to some people, but it is considered hazardous.
Well, you didn't read the whole sentence, right? When it's
that's the end. That is the end of the sentence.
It's not considered hazardous.
Oh yeah, when it's applied.
When it's properly applied and in the right amount, it's not considered hazardous. If it is used sort of, let's use the term off-label, right? If it's used off-label, then it could be hazardous.
And we should be fine that they made a promise that they're not going to make any mistakes. So at least we have that, right?
Well, that's what that public notice is all about. That public notice that the Army Corps issued it's not a notice that they're going to continue spraying. it's a notice to solicit public comment on their preliminary research.
Right.
So I think that either intentionally or unintentionally, that notice was misinterpreted, and it's to give public comment. So you have to read their preliminary research, and then you could submit comment to them, and they will take that in consideration in moving forward with their project.
Representative, we're going to Representative, just so you're on notice, we're going to stop this, right?
Well, you can try.
Ooh, I like those odds. We are going to put a stop to it.
But I just want you and your listeners to know that I'm going to do everything that's within regulations and safe and non-hazardous to our waterways to combat hydrilla so it doesn't kill our river.
It's okay for you. Listen, it's okay for you to lose this one, but we are going to stop it.
I don't think I lost.
No. When I say lose this one, I mean this one in particular. I promise you, and I don't make those promises lightly, and my audience knows. When I tell you we're going to do something, or if I tell you something's going to come, trust me, Reese on the radio, you can bank on it. DQAT will not be used in the waterways when we're done.
So, well, if the river dies, then let's have another conversation.
Well, it won't. The river won't die. I just tell you that we're not going to use DQAT on it. I know we're not.
Hey, it's your show. You get the last word.
Oh yeah, that's fair. But listen, I'm telling you, I enjoyed this, and I no hard feelings. It's a tough conversation to have. You have your point of view. I have mine. I believe that this is a nonpartisan issue. I think that everybody who's concerned about their drinking water or about the waterways has a stake in this. And you believe that it's safe. Other people do not, and that's why we're having the dialogue. So I appreciate you taking the time.
I'm an elected official, and I'm a former police officer. It's pretty hard to hurt my feelings.
I love that. Okay, then we're good to go. I'd love to have you on again, Representative Muir. Please come back. By the way, do you ever remember that TV show called the Ghost and Mrs. Muir?
I hear that joke all the time.
Okay, I thought you did. That was immediately what I thought, because I kind of feel like nobody remembers that show. That's one of my favorite shows.
I'm old enough to remember that. Matter of fact, I remember watching it after school.
So did I. That's exactly. Well, I'm 55. You don't have to give your age, but are you anywhere in that realm? Born in 69.
I'm a little older than that.
Okay, all right. So you would definitely remember watching it as a kid. I love that show.
Mm-hmm.
I love that show. Anyway, thank you again, Representative. Much appreciated. Please come back.
Anytime.
You got it.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye. Representative Renee LaMark Muir on the program. I'm sure you guys all want to chomp at the bit about this. I know we got White Mike. We'll get to him because, of course, he told us about the eco-friendly way to get rid of hydrilla. So we'll get him on the line to talk to him about. I'm sure he's been listening to the conversation. And we'll get to the bottom of that. I know I probably ruffled a couple of feathers up there at City Hall, but look, I'm telling you folks that the objective is to put an end to this, right? The objective is to stop it. Yes? I think we all can agree, even if some people don't, that the use of DQAT must be stopped. And the only thing we're doing, we're just going to ask that those who are responsible for it to happen, we're asking them to rethink it. It's not like we haven't made a little bit of headway. They pushed it back. Army Corps of Engineers, we don't have the permits. And that's fine. We're good with that. Exactly, Zach. We stopped the tolls. We can stop this. Did you like the chuckle she gave after I said that? She laughed. Yeah, that's all I needed. That's all I needed. That chuckle right at the point where I said, we're going to put a stop to this. That's all the motivation I need. I don't know how you guys operate, but you don't chuckle. That's an invitation. So now we have to stop it.
Download the free Odyssey app, search WTIC News Talk 1080, and tap earlier today to get started.
oh, I would do what had happened was, but what's the use at this point? You already know what had happened. I got so much stuff that I need to cover, and I barely got to it because of our conversation with Representative LaMark Muir as well. I'm glad she knew that reference about the, the Ghost and Mrs. Muir. I'm just saying, I know I'm a kind of an old guy, and I really grew up on television, but that's just me. I grew up on television. That's all. I had this audio bit for the movie news because I said I was going to do that during this break, but I don't have it. The Superman reviews are in. If you haven't heard, there's one review that's awful, and there's another review that's glowing. The bad review is really bad. In fact, they called it something like something to the effect of, it plays like a Saturday morning cartoon. Ugh, that hurts. That really hurts. And another review says that it's okay and the characters are fine. They're hoping that this Superman or this version of Superman is going to be great. They've already injected politics into it, suggesting, that this is about immigration. In fact, James Gunn's brother, who is in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies with him as well, I can't remember James Gunn, Sean Gunn, I think his name is saying that if this is American, this is about immigration. If you can't find something good in that, you're not American. They're already throwing politics into it. I'm going to see it anyway because it's worth going out to go see. It's Superman. It's a spectacle movie. You go and see it. In other Hollywood news, this I'm a little troubled by because do you guys know the kid Michael B. Jordan? I know you know who he is, Roland. Do you like him? Are you a big fan of his or kind of a fan of his? Michael B.
Sure,
Jordan?
why not?
Okay, Michael B. Jordan, who played Killmonger in Black Panther, and he is literally he's the new it guy in Hollywood. This guy could do any movie he wanted to, and he has. He's directed films. In fact, I think he was responsible for the last Creed movie. Pretty much iced Sylvester Stallone out. This is the new it guy. Well, he's decided that he is going to remake a 1968 film, which I can't seem to understand why he would pick it. Maybe there's something that I'm missing. But Michael B. Jordan says he wants to remake, and he has the cast for it, he wants to remake the 1968 movie, The Thomas Crown Affair. Now, I don't know if he's planning on playing the lead character of Thomas Crown, but with a guy with the new prestige of a Michael B. Jordan, I mean, many people are calling him one of the most handsome men in Hollywood. You think that's fine. But why that guy? A man who's got literally the world in the palm of his hand. Black man. Why he would want to remake a film about a thief, I have no idea. Nobody needs that kind of typecasting. Just anything else. But it's only a rumor, but we'll see. I like this kid. I like that guy. Yeah, awesome movie with Steve McQueen. Awesome movie. I even like the one with Pierce Brosnan. It's a little more, it's cornier, but I'm a big fan of Renee Russo, just so you know. Let's get another check of our weather and traffic. Jason Caterina's got weather, and Mark Christopher is in a BPS traffic center who doesn't watch movies, so this whole bit is pointless. So this whole thing is pointless. Do you even know who Steve McQueen or Pierce Brosnan are?
Oh, I do. I know who those guys are.
Okay.
Steve McQueen and Pierce Brosnan.
Can you name them?
Wasn't Pierce a 007 guy?
He was. He was very much anticipated to be the 007 after Roger Moore, but instead they went with Timothy Dalton. And Pierce Brosnan finally got it after Timothy Dalton. But Pierce Brosnan, they wanted him to be Bond after the TV series Remington Steele. They thought he would. I love that show.
Wow.
And with what was her name? Zuniga. I can't remember. Her father was in the TV show FBI or something like that. What's up, everybody? You know who it is.
You know who it is.
You know who it is. It's Reese on the radio. Frederick Douglass of the 21st century.
It's WTIC News Talk 1080.
All right, let's get to so many of these phone calls, of course, who are in. Before we get out of here, let's get Mike in Florida real quick. Why, Mike? What's going on, sir? I know you heard most of this interview. What do you got?
Dude, I just don't understand her arrogance in sticking with this plan that Florida has shown does not work, and we are the experts in hydrilla.
I tried to tell her.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It may be somewhat different in the river because rivers flow, but the stuff is still going to hit the bottom, and it's going to choke stuff out. It's not good. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And I got the feeling like she has dug her heels in typical woman style, and she's going to do what she wants to do, and how dare you tell her anything, you man.
That may be the case, but I think I got a little bit of that when I said, we're going to put a stop to this, and she chuckled. Like as if we don't, I mean, it gives the impression, who are you and what makes you think you have the power to stop us? Which is like, are you kidding?
Because, I'm sure she's an expert in aquatic vegetation, being from New Hampshire. I'm sure that, a real salt. Anyway, going to give you a little positivity here. Did you happen to see any of the Black Sabbath tribute concert this weekend?
No, but I heard it was amazing and fun, and a lot of people had a blast.
Buddy, there's this kid who's been on the periphery for a while. He's a British rock performer named Youngblood, Youngblood.
Yes.
He's very rock star. He did a cover version of Changes and killed it. Like, the kid's amazing. Apparently, Ozzy loves.
Like Changes by who? Bowie?
The Black Sabbath song. Changes.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So I listened to his new record. His new record is called Idols.
Okay.
It is fantastic. It's not Sleep Token good. It's in a different direction. It's a fantastic kind of Britpop concept record.
Okay.
There's a lot of hints of like 90s Britpop, like Oasis and Stone Roses. Dude, it's excellent. It's so good. This kid's smart. He's a good writer. And if any of your people out here have Apple Music and, I don't know, AirPods that do spatial audio, this is one of the best spatial audio records I've ever heard. It's amazing. 2 thumbs up. Highly recommended.
What's the kid's name again? It's called Youngblood?
Youngblood. Youngblood. Okay. And as an old guy, I will tell you, you get old when you stop listening to new music. So don't be afraid to try new stuff, Gen X. There's some good stuff out there.
Okay, no problem. By the way, whoever employed you for that endorsement, I hope the check is in the mail. I'm teasing. I'm totally kidding.
Purely altruistic. And Michael B. Jordan's a douchebag. I can't stand him because that stupid commercial he did for the credit cards where he's wearing the all-orange tight shirt with the chain outside, and he goes to the sushi restaurant with his multicultural friends.
Yes.
Which never happens. There's no group of friends where it's a black guy, Asian woman, Mexican dude, guy in a wheelchair, and a gay woman. That's not a peer group. It doesn't happen.
It's so United Colors of Benetton. It's like so bad. It's so bad. Thank you, boss. I appreciate you. Let's go to Lynn in Suffield. Hello, West Suffield. Hello, Lynn.
Hi. I was calling about that Diquat that they're spraying. And, I've done some research. And what about dredging? I mean, she's saying the Connecticut River is deep. Well, if they can put bridges into very deep water, I'm sure they could probably dredge up a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely.
Instead of spraying these chemicals. I mean, just like at the airport, they sprayed PFAS. And what did they end up with? Forever chemicals. I mean,
I just got a text message, Lynn. Lynn, I just got a text message as she was speaking, and we're talking about Representative Renee LaMark Muir, who's just on the program. As she was talking, people were sending me videos and links to these aquatic harvesters that are used in the Pacific Ocean.
Oh, my. See?
Okay.
I don't know what they're talking about, but they definitely should not be spraying this. And then come out years later, people go swimming in these lakes or fishing, and all the fish are dead. And, people are getting sick and wondering why. That's insane. This should never be done. Never.
Exactly.
Maybe somebody in Washington, D.C. needs to be contacted.
That's exactly what I said. I would listen. I'm willing to bet dollars to donuts that this is the last EPA, the last administration who definitely signed off on this. That the EPA in its current form with Lee Zeldin, I'm almost certain they know nothing about it because they've had. It's the reason why they don't want to bring much attention to it. We got to get this to Washington. We got to get it to the EPA secretary
I will
desk.
try my best.
You got it. I think everybody should.
VP, Vance, everybody. I mean, everybody's got to start letting them know what they're trying to do. Without a doubt, this is horrible. It's got to stop.
Indeed. By the way, I implore everybody, if you could, contact the New York Post tip line. Now, listen, there's a reason why I'm telling you to do this. I know it sounds crazy, but contact the New York Post tip line. Let them know about DQuat. Let them know about the ban in the UK and a partial ban in China. If you have to send a link, send a link. If you want to leave a message, you can leave a message. They have an 800 number that you can call. But call the New York Post tip line. Let me tell you why. They cover the tri-state area, and this is definitely something that I know, okay? And that is Fox News and the president have a very cushy relationship with the New York Post. They do, especially Miranda Devine and President Trump. If you want to get, because it's the only publication out there that anyone's reading that covers the news that the other places won't cover. It just is. So contact the New York Post tip line. Find it. There's an 800 number, or you can send an anonymous tip, but send it to them and do it now. And the more people they hear talking about or contacting them, even send them the links that are showing, like send them the links that show that the local news is ignoring it and putting the onus or putting this misinformation label on people who are concerned. Send that to the New York Post. I promise you that they would. I've already called them. I wouldn't ask you to do something I haven't done. I already called them. I called them during the last break. Just telling you I did. Let's go to Kim in Cromwell. Hey, Kim, how are you?
Yes, I've written in my letters and called them. This is a bromide. It is toxic, shown to be a carcinogen, go across the gut line, and also contribute to Parkinson's disease, which we have a lot of in this state. And I think one of the things that tends to happen is when you run out of solutions and you have to use a chemical, the Democratic Party will tend to defend it and say, we're looking out for you, we're doing this under the table, and we've checked it all out, which is not the case. This is simply Agent Orange 2.0. We've been down this road. Yep. So people have to keep calling to get them to stop. Ultimately, something that I've been lobbying for several years now, and I posted it, okay? There are special vessels and roadside vessels that can dredge and collect vegetation that is invasive and do lots of the work of manual labors. It's high-tech machinery, and it's a lifetime job for somebody.
Yeah.
You just go and do it, and it's far better than chemicals. I posted it on your website there of how this kid has been cleaning up the plastic in the Pacific Ocean with one of these vessels there, and there are also some that do some of this vegetation. I mean, it's a year-round job. You'd have to do it, but it's just like anything else. It's year-round maintenance, and as it goes through its growing season. And I urge people, you can find a lot of this stuff on YouTube, and send some pictures to your reps or whoever you want to call, because the best answers usually lie out in the public.
Yep.
Lawmakers don't review any of this stuff on YouTube. A lot of technology out there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you so much, Kim. I appreciate that. You said that. Did you link it on Facebook for me, or did you send it directly to my website?
I put it right on your website. The picture is there of an example of a vessel that does a job, okay, so that people don't have to get on their hands and knees, and it shows how it picks up plastic. So sure enough,
I got
that is able to cut through this stuff.
Okay, then I know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you, Kim. Much appreciated. I did see that. Thank you so much. Let's go to who's next online. Let me go to Craig. Craig's in the car. How are you, sir?
Brother, the depth of the river is irrelevant. The places that they're talking about putting the chemicals are in estuaries and coves, where the depth is between 5 and 15 feet. So the machines can reach there. That's where they're talking about doing it.
Right.
I don't have enough time to rebut all the nonsense that the representative sent, so I want to talk to you about Thomas Crown Affair. If that's okay.
Why that? Why the Thomas Crown Affair?
Because it's Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway, for crying out loud.
Yeah, I know that, but they first of all, they listen to me. They already blasphemed the movie when they did Pierce Brosnan and Renee Russo. Even though I love Renee Russo.
Forget that. The opening scene in the original Thomas Crown Affair is how I do business, and it starts like this. Steve McQueen, a.k.a. Thomas Crown, is sitting in a conference room with a bunch of other business guys.
Yep.
And they've got a contract, and they're passing this contract around, and they're all signing it. And when the last guy signs it, one guy boasts to another guy next to him. He says, "Well, gentlemen, we just bought Tommy Crown property." Steve McQueen stands up. He looks at him. He goes, "You overpaid."
I love that. It is a great opening scene.
It's one of the most epic opening scenes of a movie ever.
Steve McQueen is fantastic. I'm always going to be a huge fan. So again, listen, I want you, because you've got a lot of friends, Craig. I'm not trying to call you out there in anything, but you've got a lot of friends. Get them to understand what just happened today, which in essence, these guys are digging their feet in. They want this DQuat to be used in the waterways. That means the pushback is going to have to be just as fierce. You understand that, right? I mean, they're laughing at the idea that we're going to put a stop to this. That cannot be tolerated. We have to stop this.
Well, I put the hard press on last week. I haven't heard a lot back since then, but phase 2 is in place.
Okay,
I'll do that. Because I'm from here. This is my district, so
I know.
I happen to know a few people that know a few people. I don't know how far down the road this got. I don't know if these people were blindsided by it. It seems like some of them knew about it, but weren't informed about it, weren't educated about it. But to me, the mechanical removal, look, you're never going to get rid of 100% of it forever.
No, and we know that.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's every time you take a boat into one of these coves or estuaries, it's going to pick up the hydrilla. And a lot of these boats travel up the river, down the river. They get put on a trailer. That boat gets brought on that trailer to another lake.
Exactly.
And that boat gets put in there. The state does a very, very poor job of providing information about why it's so important to get rid of all the residue that's on your boat when you take it out of the water.
That's right.
That's the solution. That's how it spreads. That's how you stop it from spreading.
Exactly.
You get the stuff off the boat. You get it off the trailer. You get it off the wheels of your truck that backs into the boat launch, and then you don't transport that to another body of water.
Indeed.
That's the only way you're going to stop it.
Yeah,
That's
and
how it got
again,
here from Florida.
we may need we may need to
It
come
didn't
to
come
the
here on fairy dust.
Exactly. We may need to come to terms with the fact that this is going to be a yearly thing. Get it cleaned up and acknowledge that if we're really, because it's so invasive and it's incredible. I mean, forget about it. It's a deal. Florida has found a way to mitigate it, but it keeps coming back. But they found a way to mitigate it. We can be in that echelon, but we can't do it the way that they want to do it. They keep treating it like this is the only option. And we know it's not. It's insane.
You can manage it.
Yeah, we can manage it. Exactly.
You can manage it. You're never going to eliminate it. It's like in this area, we have the same thing with Lyme ticks and Lyme disease. You're never going to get rid of them forever.
Exactly.
But there's ways to manage it.
Exactly. That's all it is. Thank you, boss man. I appreciate you.
Ciao.
You got it. All right, folks. I'm sorry I couldn't get to everybody, but, it's rip-roaring. That's how the show goes. I love what I do. It's my favorite thing to do every day. We will be back tomorrow. If I didn't get you today, call up tomorrow. More news, more views than you can shake a stick at. As I always say, radio is free, so we thank you for paying attention. Remember to keep JC in your hearts and in your mind. Sean Patrick, we love you and we miss you. Remember that panic is not planning, so plan your work and work your plan. I'm Reese on the radio. You have a good night, pleasant tomorrow. Again, I'd like to thank Rep. Renee, LaMark, Muir for the last-minute show-up. It was a lively conversation. Took up most of the show. Let's get to Jason Catarina and Mark Risler's in the BPS Traffic Center. Good night, Mark.
Hey, Reese, have a great night. If you're heading into Hartford right now, overall looking pretty good. 84 eastbound, just a little slow traffic.
All right, sir.
8 into the tunnel.
Man.
Westbound 84 tapping the brakes over the Bulkley Bridge to 47. Certainly 91
I'm
southbound
feeling good about
speed.
today.
Right lane at 32.
Now let's see how many people call and
a little
complain.
slow down by exit 28. Northbound 91. Windsor 291.
Probably going to be quite a few.
eastbound slowing 1D
it's
up to the
probably
80
gonna
for
be
West
from the
Merge and East
Democrat
Hartford.
Party.
Quiet Middletown, Waterbury looks good, 84 to 8.
That was a good banter, though.
Southbound
I
Parkway,
thought it
look out
was.
for an
I thought
accident
it
by
was.
exit 60, and Hamden
Yeah, it
delays
was
are back
all
to
right.
61.
All right, I will see you mañana.
5 South.
See you tomorrow. Hump day.
Hump day.
44 in New Haven. Traffic and weather together on the 8's WTIC News.
All right, everybody. There is a new fee for that. Look, what fee? What fee is that? Oh, I'll send you the depth biometry maps. Okay, so you can see for yourself that those areas aren't deep at all. That caller is right. Those areas are shallow. Thank you, Don. Please send it to me. I appreciate it. Every boat owner pays for that service. Oh, really? They do? Okay. All right. Well, I guess there is a new fee for that. Lori says she sent her message to the New York Post tip line already. Thank you, Lori. Anybody else who's out there listening, call them up. Even if you listen from across the country, go to New York Post. In fact, it's the NewYorkPost.com/tips. Go to them. You can leave an anonymous message on there, or you can even call up their 1-800 number. But get them on it. Just tell them that it's a concern that the EPA and the current Army Corps of Engineers is planning on using this DQuat stuff, and we want to get, we're going to get a response from Lee Zeldin and see if he says anything about it. Lee Zeldin's from New York, and he's from upstate New York, if anything. So we'll see if we can get his attention, if we can get the New York Post to cover a story. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you always for riding with me. I love you. Be good to each other. We'll see you mañana.